Test.
I will call the January 6th meeting of the West Des Moines City Council to order and invite you all to stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, that gavel's pretty loud. Please sign
You're
in.
awake, right?
I know.
It's not gonna have hearing aids left here.
I know it.
I'm struggling.
Who are we waiting on to sign in? We missing
We
someone?
got 5 members present.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Ryan, have there been any changes to the agenda?
There is one change, Your Honor, removal of the workshop item on the operating and capital budget preliminary background.
Okay.
Staff's going to be bringing that back the next meeting on January 21st.
Okay, sounds good. With that amendment, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as
Motion to
amended?
approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please vote.
5 yes.
Okay, moving on to item 2, Citizens Forum. Anybody that would like to address the council on any item that is not either part of new business or public hearings, this is your time to please come down to the podium, give us your name and address for the record. We ask that you keep it civil and respectful and to 5 minutes or less. Is there anybody in the chamber that would like to address the council on anything that is not either part of public hearings or new business? If so, please come to the podium. Okay, seeing no one in the chamber, is there anybody online? Please hit *6, not #6, but *6 to unmute yourself and give us your name and address for the record. Is there anybody online that would like to address the council on Citizens Forum?
Hello, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, go ahead and give us your name and address for the record.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Amy. Can we just get your name and address for the record, even though we know who you are?
Certainly.
All right.
Amy Buer, 8415 Mill Civic Parkway, West Des Moines, Iowa, 50266.
All right, go ahead, Amy.
Did I say that right? I'm sorry. Did I give my full address?
Yep, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay. Continuing from December 16th, 2024 City Council meeting. Is Greta Truman
Yep.
in the back?
Greta is up here in the front on the dais with us, sitting next to City Manager Haddon.
Okay. Thank you. I was always wondering who that lady was up there. Okay. She's the city attorney.
That's correct.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Greta Truman, city attorney, does not return my calls or emails regarding the Mill Civic Parkway widening project that partially affects my property that will bring the widening of the road, which is going to be like an interstate because it's connected to two interstates, up to my front porch. There was other options besides coming so close to the residential people, and I don't like it, but okay, it seems like you're going to continue on. The 5th District Judge awarded that the City of West Des Moines City Hall refuses to cooperate with the judgment against it. In other words, the City of West Des Moines City Hall is committing land theft, and sometimes this happens by forging documents or occupying the land without legal right and claiming ownership. Furthermore, I got to thinking about the last time the City of West Des Moines City Hall started a riot on my property. Actually, it happened twice, and attempted to murder me and caused my disability to worsen. And I wondered what construction companies will assist the City Hall in the land grab. I also wondered if you would be inviting police in the spring, the fire department, SWAT, the FBI to trespass and murder me and my family. I'm letting the public know that we are unarmed senior citizens that are disabled. Because you refuse to do what the 5th District Judge said to do, you refuse a court order.
Amy, you've got less than a minute, a little bit less than a minute.
It's so terrible how you treat me. We've never missed a house payment or a tax payment. I never committed any crime, but because I reported corruption, you and your partnerships wish to end my life. Thank you.
Thank you,
That's
Amy.
all.
Thank you. Is there anybody else online that would like to address the council on Citizens Forum? Okay, hearing no one, Citizens Forum is closed. We'll move on to item 3, Mayor, Council, Manager Report, Other Entities Update. And I will start down to my right with City Manager Tom Haddon.
No report this evening, thank you.
Okay,
Mayor.
thank you, Tom. Councilman Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not a lot to report tonight. I just wanted to encourage everyone to come to the MLK Day celebration, which will be on Monday, January 20th. It'll be out at the Recplex from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock, and some other our council members might mention it too. But certainly it's an opportunity to celebrate not just certainly the life and legacy of Dr. King, but also come together in the spirit of community and service. So I want to encourage everyone to come out to that. And Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman McKinney.
Nothing at this time, Mayor.
You know, in regards to the Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration, is there anybody here from the Human Rights Commission or otherwise for the proclamation? And I'm asking because I know I'm going to be reading this proclamation on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So I don't know if we need to read it tonight in the chamber unless there's people here for that item tonight. Is there anybody?
I think there is people here, Audrey's here and Human
Okay,
Services. I don't-
okay, I've got to note this as I'm not sure anyone's going to be here tonight for this, but, okay, well, we'll read it anyway. Go ahead, Councilwoman Hardman, your report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to also say happy New Year to everyone. We started off our year pretty tough with what happened in New Orleans, and I'm just like, gosh, as I hear city council members and mayors speak on CNN about what's all going on, every station about what's going on, I'm just like, well, thankful for our police and the people that put themselves on the front line to keep us safe. We know that there's 2 officers that are still in a hospital fighting for their lives, who really probably saved a lot of other lives from happening. So it gives me a moment to pause sometimes and say, God, it could be us. It could be us. It could be our police officers. It could be our first responders. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful that it isn't. I'm grateful that I didn't wake up New Year's Day to hear about someone being shot or in the hospital. So we're a city just like any other city. And we gather and we party and we do all of those things. And so it just became crystal clear to me as a city official that we could be on the news for something that could happen. So I'm thankful that it didn't. I'm thankful that for the people that serve and the first responders that are there to take care of situations as they happen. And I think we should just pray for the families, pray for the lost, pray for the city. And I just think it's a point in time to pause and do that. I'd like to also encourage us to come out and celebrate Martin Luther King holiday. It is not a holiday for blacks and whites, it's a holiday for all of us. Martin Luther King Jr. fought more for poverty than he did almost for race. And so the equality that we can all walk in this life and have things that everyone else has. So come out and celebrate it. I'm really thankful, Mayor, that we have this proclamation. I remember 6 years ago when I was elected, the first question I asked the city manager was, did we observe Martin Luther King holiday? And it wasn't a holiday at that time. But with the team, you can't do it by yourself. I asked us to consider making it a holiday. And that was one of the first votes that was cast to allow that to happen. You were part of it. You were part of it, Kevin. Mayor, you were a part of it. And we made it happen. And I was very proud of that, and I'm proud of it today because you all supported that. I'd also like to say that, again, let's all come out and support it, and let's support the activities. I remember also 2 years after that, I was like, why are we always going to Des Moines to celebrate? Let's celebrate here right in West Des Moines. And they took us up and they make it bigger and bigger every year. So ideas matter and thoughts matter and support matter. So proud to work for a city, to our city manager, Tom, for supporting the efforts of staff, helping put this together. And so thank you very much to everybody for supporting what I consider a very important day.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Trevilian.
Nothing this time, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Councilman Lotz.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Okay, I guess for my report, I typically don't have anything, but I do want to mention this. You know, you were talking about our first responders, our police, our fire, our EMS, the men and women who get up every day and put their lives on the line to make sure that we are safe and take care of this entire community. You know, we talk so much about economic development and quality of life amenities and all kinds of great things that we have going on in the city. None of that would matter if we weren't safe, if we didn't have these men and women protecting us every day and keeping us safe. And so I got home the other night from vacation, and my wife had gone through the mail, and she said that I needed to read this one piece of mail that was sent to me from one of our citizens. And I thought I just wanted to read it for you here tonight. Dear Mayor Trimble, the West Des Moines EMS saved my husband's life yesterday, and I want to express my most heartfelt thanks. We live at the Lodge on Ashworth. My husband fell and had difficulty breathing. The ambulance and crew arrived quickly, assessed the situation, and got him on oxygen. It turned out he had large blood clots in each lung and had emergency surgery. We are so grateful for the EMTs who arrived and transported him to Mercy One. Thank you so much. So it's just, can't say enough about our public safety officials and what they do every single day for all of us. So thank you to all of you.
That's incredible.
Yeah. It's pretty heartfelt note from this woman. Okay, moving on to item 4, consent agenda. We will pull the 2 proclamations, which is 4L1 and 2, and I will read those. Are there any other items that any council person would like to have pulled and voted on separately?
Motion for the remainder.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, please vote.
5 yes.
Okay, moving on to item 4L1. It's approval of proclamations. 4L1 is proclamation for Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month, January 2025. Can I get a motion to approve the proclamation?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and I will read. Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month, January 2025. Whereas the United States was founded upon the principle that all people are created with the inalienable right to freedom, and added the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, making slavery illegal. And whereas slavery within the United States today is most often found in the form of forced labor and sex trafficking, which weakens our social fabric, increases violence and organized crime, and debases our humanity. And whereas this heinous crime is found within our own community, and whereas organizations such as the Iowa Network Against Human Trafficking and Slavery, American Association of University Women, and law enforcement are working together to abolish all forms of human trafficking through education, prevention, volunteerism, advocacy, and collaboration. And whereas, even though awareness of the crime is growing, human trafficking continues to go unreported due to its isolating nature, the misunderstanding of its definition, and the lack of awareness about its indicators. And whereas the increased community education on how to identify victims of human trafficking, along with increased knowledge of local resources and services for those affected by these criminal actions, can help restore freedom and dignity to identified survivors, as well as help diminish the number of future victims. And whereas every business, community organization, faith community, family, and individual can make a difference by working to protect our young people from sexual exploitation, by addressing the problem of internet sex trafficking and pornography, and by becoming more aware of the problem and possible solutions. Now, therefore, I, Russ Trimble, Mayor of the City of West Des Moines, Iowa, do hereby proclaim the month of January 2025 as Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month, and encourage all our citizens to become more informed of this growing problem, to be vigilant and report suspicious activity, and to work towards solutions to end trafficking in all its forms in our community. Signed this 6th day of January 2025. With that, are there any comments or any discussion?
I just wanted to share one thing. With regards to this, I wanted to kind of echo what Councilwoman Hardman said earlier, to thank our public safety officers. I know for a fact that Chief Scott and his team, considering that we have the intersection of 80 and 35 in our community, which is, of course, really, really troubling when it comes to human trafficking, because it can happen any and every day. I know that he has a lot of members of his team, police officers, who care deeply about stopping this, so I want to thank them. And again, our state and federal authorities for trying to do what they can to put a stop to all of this. So a special thank you to you, Chief Scott, and your team. Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, please vote.
5 yes.
And we will take a picture down front in a second. I'm going to do the other proclamation, and then we'll do the pictures one after another. Okay. Item 4L2, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, January 20th, 2025. Can I get a motion to approve the proclamation?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I will read. Whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. devoted his life to advancing equity, social justice, and opportunity for all, challenging everyone to participate in the never-ending work of building a more perfect union. And whereas despite his untimely death, Dr. King's teachings continue to guide us in addressing perennial challenges in our communities. And whereas we are forever indebted to him for his sacrifice, so we honor his life each year by recognizing the profound impact he had locally and globally. And whereas millions of Americans have been inspired by the work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to challenge injustice, serve with compassion, and center the lives of those in the margins. And whereas each of us has a responsibility to contribute to making our communities better with increased access and opportunity for all residents. And whereas the King Holiday and Service Act, enacted in 1994, is one of only 2 federal holidays commemorated as a national day of service and offers an opportunity for individuals to give back to their communities through collective action. And whereas I encourage West Des Moines residents to make it a day on, not a day off, by volunteering with agencies like Meals from the Heartland or throughout the year with our Human Services Department to help feed our most food insecure residents. Now, therefore, I, Russ Trimble, Mayor of the City of West Des Moines, Iowa, do hereby proclaim January 20th, 2025, Martin Luther King Jr. Day as a day of service in West Des Moines and call upon the community to pay tribute to the life and works of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. today and throughout the year. Is there any discussion? Okay. Just hearing no discussion besides the Medicare commercial. Please vote.
5 yes.
Okay. First, why don't we have Mary Ann, who is here, come join us. Mary Ann is here with the American Association of University Women. So Mary Ann, if you want to come down in front, take a picture with myself and the council. And then we'll have Audrey come take a picture after that. Front and center. All right. Thank you so much. Yeah, this is yours to keep. That's your copy. Yep, thank you for being here and bringing awareness to this issue. Thanks for being here. Thank you so much. Okay, anybody here for the Martin Luther King Jr. Day proclamation? Audrey and others, come on down.
HRC is not here tonight.
Okay, well, we'll do it tonight, and we'll do it on the 20th as well. Hold on, Vicki, come down.
I feel like I'm on The Price is Right. Come on down.
All right, Vicki, come on here, let's move over a little bit. You guys get in the middle, you get in the center. All right.
Tom's way down there on the screen.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Vicki. Thank you.
All right, I got paper everywhere up here. With that, we'll move to item 5, old business. Just give me a second here. Okay, item 5A, Val Air Ballroom, PUD 301 Ashworth Road, amend Val Air Ballroom Planned Unit Development Ordinance to adjust hours. The restaurant/bar in the basement of the Val Air Ballroom building is open to the public. And we have got an ordinance amendment for approval of the second reading, waiver of third reading, and adoption in final form. There are no outstanding issues. There are, however, 4 conditions of approval. One condition of approval relates to reducing the number of patrons in the concert hall to allow for the general public to be able to attend the restaurant during an event. The second condition of approval relates to the council allowing for the bar to be open prior to the second and third reading, which we're doing right now. The third condition of approval relates to the restrictions that are put in place if the applicant fails to properly balance the number of people in the concert hall versus the restaurant. And the final condition of approval relates to the applicant agreeing to the traffic analysis findings and adjusting the internal circulations of the site so as to not cause a problem back up on Ashworth Road. With that, can I get a motion to consider the second reading?
Motion to consider second.
Second.
Okay, it's a move and second. Is there any discussion?
I just think this is going to be a great addition down there. I don't know, there's probably not too many people that have ever been in the basement of the Valor Ballroom. I have had the opportunity to do that several years ago when previous owners had it. And what they're going to basically recreate down there is what was original to the building. So I think it's great that the owners of the Valor Ballroom are bringing this facility back to basically what it originally was, the way it looked when it was first built. So.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I'm really excited about this. This is going to be something really cool for our residents to be able to enjoy. So, and not just our residents, people from outside the area
Absolutely.
coming for concerts and just maybe coming for the speakeasy or restaurant. So really cool development. All right, any other discussion before we vote? Okay, please vote.
Five yes, an ordinance amending the city code of the city of West Des Moines, Iowa, 2024, and ordinance numbers 2595 and 2627 pertaining to Plan Unit Development District regulations and guidelines.
Motion to approve, second reading.
Second.
Please vote.
Five yes.
Move waiving the third reading and adopt in final form.
Second.
Okay, please vote.
Five yes.
Okay, moving on to item 6, public hearings. Item 6A, we just have one public hearing tonight. This is a time and place for a public hearing to consider Community Development Block Grant Program amendments to the 2022-23 Annual Action Plan and 23-24 Annual Action Plan initiated by the City of West Des Moines. Ryan, did you please read the date the notice is published?
December 26, 2024, in the Des Moines Register.
And have you received any written comments to this hearing?
None, Your Honor.
Okay, anybody from the audience that would like to address the council item 6A, please come to the podium here, give us your name and address for the record. Anybody online, please hit *6 and do the same. Is there anybody either in the chamber or online that would like to address the council on item 6A? If it seems like I give an awkward pause, sometimes people are fiddling around on the phone trying to find *6 and hitting the wrong buttons, so want to give people a chance to get in. All right, hearing and seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. We've got a resolution for approval, the amended 22-23 action plan and the amended 23-24 action plan, and there are no outstanding issues. Can I get a motion to approve the action plans?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the dais?
I just want to thank city staff for coming up with a solution for these funds. And again, anytime we can make stormwater improvements, they're not sexy, but they are incredibly important. So I'm glad we get to continue with this project.
All right, thank you so much. With that, go ahead,
I'd just
Renee.
like to make a comment to thank the staff as well, and Christine for all the work that she does in this area. And it's kind of behind the scenes stuff, but really, really important for the vitality of the city. So Christine, thank you for everything that you do and your team to make this meaningful, important stuff for City of West Des Moines and our citizens.
Absolutely. Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, please vote.
Five yes.
Okay. Item 7, new business. Item 7A, Locust Plat 1, 1205 Locust Street. Approve final plat to create 3 lots for single-family residential development, Greater Des Moines Habitat for Humanity. We've got a resolution for approval and release of the final plat, and there are no outstanding issues.
Motion for approval.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Is there anybody in the audience or online that would like to address the council on item 7A? Any discussion on the dais? Okay, hearing none, please vote.
I was going to say, we know that the late President Carter would be happy about this one.
Yep.
That was his number one project
true.
for helping
Yep,
folks for.
yep,
affordable
absolutely.
housing.
No, this will be a great project for us.
5 yes.
Okay, moving on to item 7B, Legacy Woods, speaking of great projects, Legacy Woods Nature Sanctuary, 2280 Grand Avenue, approve a site plan to allow the construction of a parking lot and walkways for the Legacy Woods Development, City of West Des Moines. We have got a resolution for approval of the site plan and acceptance of associated legal documents, and there are no outstanding issues, but there is one condition of approval, that the council defer the implementation of the parking lot screening until such time that the comprehensive education master planting plan is complete.
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there anybody in the audience or online that would like to address the council on item 7B?
And I have a question, Your Honor, as well.
Yes.
For staff, when the time comes.
Okay, okay. Anybody that would like to address the council on this item, either in the chamber or online? Okay, Councilman Loetz.
One quick question for our city manager, Mr. Haddon, or Mr. Penning, I think you're in the back. I noticed on the drawings that the, I'll call it legacy fence along Grand Avenue, it's an old chain link fence, it's still there. And in the plans, it noted that that fence was going to remain. My question is, and there's also like almost an entryway or a brick facade there. What's our plans with those? Are those going to stay forever, or are we going to tear those out later?
The fence is going, and the facade will stay to be part of the historical aspect of the.
Hey, hit your microphone, will you, Tom?
Oh,
sorry.
No, it's okay.
The fence will be removed, the chain link fence.
Okay.
But the facade, the structure will stay as to be part of the historical aspect of the site. And at ARP, would you want to say anything more to that?
Come forward.
Come forward, Ed.
Hold on,
Come
you
on
got to come to the mic. We're not going to be that council that has people yelling stuff from the back row.
I don't think he's going to do that. But I think he's willing to come up to the mic.
Please give us your name and address for the record, sir.
Hawkins, Ed Arp, Civil Engineering Consultants. Nice to see you all.
Good to see you, Ed.
Happy New Year.
See you. Happy New Year, Ed.
So the aspects of this site we're always looking at the history. So the monument was really a gate into the original tabernacle. So we've decided to leave that and probably mount a plaque on it to recognize that, because they did occupy that site for quite a while. And if it hadn't been for them, the site probably wouldn't still be there, because they held it in place for quite some time. The fence actually is a future phase that will take that down. We decided we would leave it during phase one, partly for security, partly just for construction, keep people out of there.
Okay.
But yeah, the intent is for it to go away.
Okay, that's good. I would say we're doing such a nice berm along the stormwater detention pond there, and then we have that ugly fence sitting there. That caught my eye, so thanks, you
Ed,
guys.
before you walk away, so that archway that Tom said is going to stay, that's basically going to stay there just as a monument, because there will not be a driveway onto Grand, correct?
Correct, yeah, the driveway will go away. We'll have a plaque probably on the inside side of that wall that you can walk by. So and the wall's actually in very good shape. They used to know how to make things, I guess. So yeah, it'll just remain there.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
Well, like I said, this is going to be a phenomenal project. I know there's a lot of people in the community that are really excited about this and just love that we're doing this and preserving this historic land and, adding to our history with what the Historical Society is going to be doing, as well as giving people a chance to really get out and enjoy nature. The only other thing I would say is, sometimes I write myself these notes when doing this, and I have no idea what I'm talking about when I'm saying a comprehensive education master planting plan. I don't know where that came from, but So staff, in case you're giggling in the back row, until such time that the master planting plan is complete. I don't know where education came from. Anyway, thought I would clear that up so people didn't think I was crazy.
We're just trying to confuse you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, okay, all right. Sometimes I read things. I did this late at night.
Like, I
He
just,
doesn't need help.
it probably doesn't need to be said, but I just love this project.
Yeah. this-
And this is such a good use of private money and public money, and I think everybody's going to get to enjoy it when it's done. Maybe Mr. Haddon, maybe job for our summer interns is to paint the fence around the graveyard this summer, but I won't tell people what to do, I guess.
Well, if you got the interns, you can tell them what to do.
So noted, Mr. Councilman.
And I agree that this is a great project, and that's why I pushed real hard, for the city to buy this land, because it is the last piece of original, not even Valley Junction at that time. It was just land that James Jordan settled on, and it's the only piece down there that really remains as it was when he first saw it. So I think it's going to be a huge benefit to the city of West Des Moines, and I'm really excited to get this project underway and for a lot of people to be able to go out and enjoy it.
If no one's read the James Jordan book, everyone should read it. It's around. I read it.
Yeah.
It's incredible, and it talks all about this piece of land. Mr. Hudson, you're the historian.
I agree.
Well,
All right. All right. With that, we've talked so long, I'm not sure. Please vote. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Councilwoman.
too, and I do appreciate that. And I remember the discussion when there was some desires to put warehouses there. And I remember that discussion. I remember all of the debate. And, one of the things that compelled me was the notion of the history of that land and that place. It was a hiding place for slaves where they could be safe. And it's a part of history right here in West Des Moines. And so one of the things I love about it is that it preserves history, whether we've experienced it or what we feel about it or not. Back in the day, there were some great things happening and people that really, really, really went against the grain, quite frankly, to save lives and to be a part of something that they had to almost hide. So as I think about it, reading the book is great. It's wonderful. But it doesn't take much to really realize that we can say in West Des Moines, there's a piece of history, whether people want to know it or not, is there for folks that do want to know about it because it's important. It's a part of our legacy. It's a part of who we are. So I'm excited about this project.
Absolutely. With those words, please vote.
Five yes.
Okay, item 7C. This time I won't make stuff up as I read this. Amendment to City Code, Title 7, Public Ways and Property, Chapter 11, Park Regulations, Section 1, purpose to clarify the terms, quote, city park and, quote, greenway. Section 2, Rules and Regulations, subsection M, to standardize hours within city parks. We've got an ordinance amendment for approval of the first reading, and there are no outstanding issues.
Move consideration of the first reading.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there anybody either online or in the chamber that would like to address the council on item 7C? Okay, is there any discussion on the dais? I would just say that I appreciate this amendment. I question as to, the park's going to be open until 10:30. Question as to whether or not we need to even reduce that and have them close a little bit earlier. When you talk about safety and keeping people safe in our community, we've had some issues in the parks lately, and that's a concern. I know it's a concern to everybody up here on the dais. So I think this is a good start. Let's see what the 10:30, what it looks like and what these amendments do. And we might need to tweak this if there's not a change. So,
Well said, Mayor. Step in the right direction.
yep. Okay, any other discussion? All right, please vote.
Five yes, an ordinance amending the city code of the city of West Des Moines, Iowa, 2024 by amending Title 7, Public Ways and Property, Chapter 11, Park Regulations.
Move approval of the first reading.
Okay, please vote.
5 yes.
Okay, item 7D, Two Oaks Wealth Facade, 214 Fifth Street, approval and acceptance of city property lease agreement, indemnification hold harmless agreement, Legendary Construction Services LLC and Comport LLC. We've got a resolution for approval and acceptance of city property lease agreement and indemnification hold harmless agreement, and there are no outstanding issues. This was also approved unanimously by the Public Services City Council Subcommittee. Somebody want to move approval of the resolution?
So moved.
Approval. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there anybody either online or in the chamber that would like to address the council on item 7D?
I'd like to just make a comment.
Okay, come on up and give us your, come on up and give us,
Curtis, nice to meet you.
Where's,
Come on up.
Thanks for your time.
give us your name and address for the record, please.
My name's Curtis Mayfield, 4124 Southwest 28th Street, Des Moines, Iowa, 50321.
Okay,
I'm the Director of Operations for Legendary Construction. This is a really simple thing. I don't want to waste any time here. What we're all here for is just about location of some parking spots that we're going to rent for $1,000 for 30 days.
okay,
On the 23rd of December, I attended a Skype kind of thing.
sure.
All right, this building, just kind of talking about it. There seem to be some complications. We would like those 4 parking spots where we can stage material as close to the job site that we're working on. There's a million reasons: safety, vehicles moving around, cleanliness of the job site, all kinds of stuff. We're also moving 3.5, 4 tons of material by hand. Admittedly, yeah, we want to move it as short of a distance as possible. We've made a lot of concessions due to the cost of those things, which fell back on our client. We're going to be removing our dump trailers every night. We're going to be removing our job site trailers every night. All we're kind of asking for is to be able to put our materials in its staging process as close to the job site as we possibly can, so that we're not tracking garbage and debris and nails and tires all the way across the parking lot. Apparently, not everyone sees it the same way. I'm just asking for some consideration on that. Interestingly enough, I've had multiple conversations with a lot of Valley Junction business owners. This is a Valley Junction project, by the way. I don't know much about it as far as like what it's going to be painted as a mural, but it's going to be awesome. I'm just kind of the hammer swinger guy on this. I'd really like us to be able to have these parking spots that are close. We're paying for them, et cetera. That's all I'm here to ask for. I've had conversations with a lot of business owners in Valley Junction. They're excited about it. They agree with this. I would just like to see if we can get that done, as opposed to us having to hump it all the way across, a parking lot. That's the only reason I'm here.
Okay.
Here, I can maybe speak.
Yeah, go ahead, Councilman
Go ahead,
McKinney.
Matt.
Yeah, okay. It was Curtis, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Curtis, thank you for being here. And I was on the other end of the Skype or the
Oh.
Teams call.
Nice to meet you.
On behalf
Nice
of the
to put a
city.
face to a name.
Yep, myself and Councilman Trevilian were there as part of our
Hi, Kevin.
public services.
Nice to meet you,
Good to
Kevin.
meet you.
Yep. And just so maybe for the benefit of the council, I can share some context for how this all came up.
Sure.
Initially, if you look at your packet, page 206, there's an aerial photograph, and 214 is highlighted in red. And it was shared during the subcommittee meeting that the south side, the west side, maybe even a portion of the north side, certainly the south and west.
Yeah, it's kind of, I'm sorry, I don't.
Yeah, please, no, that's fair.
I think we discussed this in that 23rd meeting. The way Mr. Ports outlined it, I think he was just trying to identify the building to make sure he was talking about the right building,
Yeah.
the right spot. We're working at the halfway point of this building, which the front half of this building is, I believe, historical. Don't quote me on that. I'm a hammer swinger. But the back half of it, I'm sure, is cinder block, so I know it's not
Yeah.
historical.
Yeah.
We're working on that back half on those 3 walls, if you can imagine it that
Yep.
way.
Yep. And so, thank you. And so what part of our conversation initially related to, what's going to happen on the side of this building. And so for purposes of today's conversation, I do not believe any of, thank you, Lynn. And so you see there the red building. It basically where I don't know, the 2 is. to the left side of that, for the two to the west or to the left.
I don't
on
have
the
it in
south
front of me,
side.
but yeah.
Yeah, it's on the screen, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, sure.
yeah,
Right around the 2, maybe the 1.
there you go.
Somewhere in there, there is a brick section of that where there is historical brick on the south side wall. The north side of that red is adjoined to a building, so it doesn't matter. The east side of this building, which would be the face side of it on Fifth Street, doesn't matter. It's completely done. It's 100% done. We're not touching any of that. You get to about the 2, and we're going from the 2 that way, back up and back over. That's it.
Perfect. And so my understanding is there's going to be a mural there, at least on the south side, and maybe a surface that you're going to create a canvas, so to speak, that folks can paint on. And so what came before the Public Services Council and what I believe is before us today is not a question as to whether or not the mural is appropriate or what it's going to look like. One of the things we made clear at the subcommittee was that we are not approving any design that's moving forward. My understanding is that will have to go through a separate process because we do have those design guidelines, and we're going to hold folks to comply with those. And so that's the first thing I want to outline is tonight does not relate to the design. And my understanding is even if this goes forward, there's going to be a separate approval process to ensure that whatever goes on the side of that building is consistent with the design guidelines. The second item we discussed is whether or not we as a city, because this is, as you see on this on the left side, that's a city lot, whether the city wanted to allow those 4 stalls to be utilized for purposes of staging or whatever, as Curtis described this evening, temporarily. Yes. Yep. And I think actually at the subcommittee, the blue box was a little bit, it was on the right-hand side of where it's at, so there's kind of like a white truck up there. Yep. And it was there. And one of the things that, at least at the subcommittee, we were having a conversation about was whether or not we wanted to occupy or not allow our residents or visitors to Valley Junction be able to park in the closest areas to the businesses, particularly as it relates to the walkway. If you remember, there's on the south side of 214, there's a walkway through there. And so, there were a couple things we talked about. Number one, we wanted to make sure that we allowed the stalls closest to the businesses to be occupied by visitors as opposed to staging for construction. Second, Gary Rank had indicated he had some concerns about snow removal and staging, and I think that was addressed there.
Yep.
There was a third item that I'm drawing a blank on here, but we
There's liability of moving to the parking lot.
Yeah.
Events.
Events, that's exactly right. And we wanted to make sure
Yes, that's correct.
there wasn't an event or events scheduled during the 30 or 45 days. I think technically in the packet it's a 45-day window that we have this lease agreement. Whatever it is, we just want to make sure there wasn't going to be like, Jingle in the Jungle or Jingle in the Junction or other activities that would, fill these lots. My understanding is there's not going to be those activities filling the lots. But then the remaining question is, are we going to allow the spots to occupy those closest to the parking, closest to the businesses and the walkway, or should it be a distance? Myself and Councilman Trevelyan suggested we ought to make sure that it's moved away. As I count it, maybe 10 stalls a distance, and obviously the obligations would be on the vendor to make sure things were cleaned up. But that's some background for the longer conversation we had at the subcommittee.
I appreciate that background. Kevin, is there anything you want to add?
No, I think you summed it up.
Okay,
We just don't
perfect.
think it makes sense for people that are down there shopping when this is going to go through into February with cold weather and whatnot to have to, park farther away when that walkway is right there, what's marked in 212, so.
Okay, and so Curtis, what you're asking to have these spots, what we're approving tonight is where that blue rectangle is, for you to have those spots there.
No. What I'm
Okay.
actually looking.
No, what you're asking is, you want to have the spots closer to the building.
Yes, sir.
And what we're approving,
Where does he want it?
he wants the spots, how do I
Brian
describe
Ford's put
it?
together an outline.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
But you've got the back part of the parking lot, that's what we're approving tonight. You're asking for us to not approve that, but to approve the closer spots instead.
Yes.
Okay,
Can I ask a question?
That one.
yeah, go ahead, Councilman Lotz, go ahead.
So I see the blue square, I see 212 where the walkway is.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not speaking to you, I'm speaking to Matt and Kevin here, just, and maybe Lynn or whoever worked on this, but so there's going to be an active construction zone going on in that walkway at 212. Do we normally let people walk through active construction zones? We just paid a settlement on one where somebody fell, little girl fell and hit her head. To me, I don't even know why, if this construction's going on, we let anybody walk through it. Thus, I would move the parking spaces over and tell him, get your work done and get out of there. That's all I'll say.
I don't know. I mean, Curtis described the sort of construction that's going, it's not like, as I understood it, bricks and other like heavy, cranes are going to be in the area.
We won't have.
But he's a-
no,
he's a
please,
hammer-
you
but
go
he's a
ahead.
hammer swinger.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. This is my first time.
No,
No,
you're
you're fine. If you want to describe the work you'll be doing as you shared with us, might be helpful.
Light commercial industrial. We may be utilizing some pump jacks, which are poles that you can put a plank on and you can jack them up and you get up a little bit higher. We don't intend to use any heavy machinery whatsoever, but by the nature of this, and hence why I'm here now, is we're huffing all this by hand. And each one of the panels, and there's going to be about 70 to 80 of them, of the finished product and 70 to 80 of them of the substrate product. Each of them weighs around between 90 and 100 pounds. We're moving 4 tons of material by hand.
But when I hear substrate, I think of something's got to go under the sidewalk or the walkway at some point.
Under the sidewalk?
Well, substrate is usually used under.
No, I mean, if I could give you an example of what we're doing, maybe to shed some light.
Yeah, a little more.
We're shelling the back 3 walls of this building. Currently, it's a cinder block wall. It's gray, looks like a cinder block wall. We are going to be putting on 1-inch R-board zip wall to foam back 7/16 OSB panel.
Okay.
We're going to be installing it first as an insulation barrier and as a substrate to that, and then we're going to be installing James Hardy smooth panel pre-finished white. We actually did this on purpose because we didn't want it to be ugly and primed for the 6 months it's going to take now until spring before an artist can come in
And so what you're telling me is there's absolutely zero chance some of that could fall on somebody who's walking through.
No.
Okay.
There's never a zero chance, Mr. Lutz.
That's doing my best lawyer impression. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you. No, you answered exactly what I wanted.
All right, well, we've got right now a
but I-
motion and a second, and it includes the spaces that were recommended by the city council subcommittee. which are
And
the
that's
back
fine.
Spaces.
I'm not arguing that. I'm thinking, if it were me, I would block the walkway and I'd move his spots over. And then that way you can avoid any liability and some piece of, I heard the word 7/16 OSB, that might hurt if it fall on somebody's head. So
That's fair.
Can we yeah.
But once it's attached, it's not going to fall off.
No. And I'm sorry, Mr. Lutz, I don't want to interrupt, but it was already our intention, anytime we go into a public space when we're doing some construction like this, during our hours of operation, we're going to be sectioning off the front of that breezeway and the back side of that breezeway, at least on the half side. So like, imagine this shadow as being the available ability to walk. Okay? I don't know what that's.
You can point over here, and they will see what you're pointing at.
Oh, thank you. Again, it's my first time. Thank you. I appreciate you. This space between the lighted and the shaded section is roughly 30 feet. Okay? Every panel we're putting on in this I'm sorry, I keep putting my shadow on it. The lighted section along here, every panel we're putting on is only 8 foot tall. So if it fell on anyone, it's falling on me. It's not going to fall on anyone walking by us, and we're going to be sectioning off this area to here, this area to here, and we intend to be shutting down around 5 o'clock because unfortunately this thing has gotten itself into wintertime. So the sun's going down at 4. So we won't be here actually when anyone is, for the most part.
Okay, so that establishes the liability. We're not extremely worried about the liability. There's always some liability with this, and people,
Sure.
we're in a litigious society, and anybody could sue for anything, but we're not
Sure.
overly concerned about the liability.
no, I'm trying to help here. So if we're
Thank you.
gonna,
I get it.
if we're going to cordon off that walkway that nobody can walk through it, then why don't we let them have the parking spaces?
I don't know that it's actually fully closed off. I mean, maybe that's a fair question. Do you?
I can close it off if that's what the city would like me to do.
I don't know.
Is it necessary to close it all
No.
off?
Half.
I'm
believe
not the
there's some
engineer here, so
planners in the
I don't
middle.
know.
Okay, then I'll go with the subcommittee's recommendation.
Well, just hold on a minute, though. You're bringing up a good point, and I want to make sure that we're vetting this appropriately. You know, we've got Steve Freevert sitting in the audience here. Steve, if you want to come up, and I'd like to hear what you have to say, and then I want to hear what staff has to say about this. Okay.
Steve Freeman, Executive Director of the Historic Valley Junction Foundation. Curtis and I talked about this a little week or so ago. Our organization advocated for the funding that made this project possible. Our staff and some of our volunteers served on the due diligence committee that helped award the funding or recommended the awarding of the funding for this project. We love to see people invest in their buildings in Valley Junction, and we want to see it made as easy as possible for people to do that. I could tell you that we do not have any events planned for the next couple months that are going to take place outside in the parking lot. That parking lot, especially this time of year, does not see a lot of use in those spaces. I did talk to the adjoining businesses and asked if that is a problem, because that's who's parking there. It's not visitors. It's the employees of those of the businesses at 214, 216, 218. And they said, no, it would not be a problem if those spaces were taken, allowing Curtis's crew to move a little bit closer.
Okay,
See,
so
I
it's not
thought,
a problem for.
my thought was, why not make it easy for them, and maybe it'll get done quicker too.
Okay, so then we've got, Ryan, who moved this and who seconded? Was it moved by McKinney, seconded by Trevilian?
Correct.
Okay, so we've got a motion on the floor right now. The question is, do you want to stand by the city council subcommittee recommendation, or are you willing to take back your second and take back your motion and consider allowing for these guys? I mean, no, it's
it's a
your
fair
prerogative.
question.
You guys did a lot of.
I didn't mean to stir up such a hornet's
I
nest.
tell you guys,
I'm
great.
wondering why we're making him lug all that substrate so far.
Yeah, we were trying to make it easy for our residents to be able to visit Valley Junction. Can I ask, will that 30-foot area be fully closed off during that 30-day period or 45-day period?
I can close off the entire thing. I can close off part of it. I can do whatever the council recommends.
Yeah.
It's fine by me.
What can I ask? I don't know, Brian or Lynn, what is the city going to require from a safety perspective? Because I agree, if the whole thing's going to be closed, you ought to have the spots probably closer to the building. If there's going to be a walkway there where people could actually park closer to the businesses and utilize that walkway,
Sure.
then I probably would remain in the position that you could move it about 10 spots away so people could park closer.
We'd have considered that prior to the holidays too. In fact, we'd have just postponed the whole thing. You know what I mean? To where we're at now.
So as a city, are we going to require him to close that 30-foot walkway or no?
And you might, and Greta may want to chime in on this too. I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, from a liability, public safety standpoint, what do we require? And this is a little bit on the fly, I realize.
Yeah, it is. I would rely on buildings actually and engineering as to what would be the safe distance to close that down.
If I could give a recommendation?
Please.
We don't want to hamper the entire alleyway that you can see here. Like, this is the entire alleyway between the parking lot and those businesses. This is just the breezeway, right, between 210 and 214. I would say we're already going to be there every morning and every afternoon because we're pulling our dump trailers, we're pulling our job site trailers because we don't want to take more of the parking spaces than we're already asking for, which is unusual for what we're doing, but we're going to do it. We can close down this space between 214 and 210 and 214 and 210, front to back, east to west, every morning and every night. And then open it back up when no one is working. Sun's going to go down at 4 o'clock. We're not going to get much done after 4:30. We'll be buttoned up by 5. And by the time people are looking to go to the Winchester to grab a cocktail or the Vicks to get a pizza, go for it. No one's going to be in danger.
So I can say, without engineering qualifications, that if it is closed, there's very low risk, right? Because people won't be walking through there. However, if we're not going to close it down, then I would need to know exactly what they're doing and have buildings or engineering
Okay.
assess the risk.
Yeah,
And what are you going to require them? What were we planning to require?
Lynn Tweet, Director of Development Services. I have not been in on these conversations, but part of this concern probably is public services. With it being a snow season, you also have maintenance factors that you're going to have to factor into this. Closing it down and first thing in the morning, last thing at night, restricting when they can get in, what we do with the snow, that becomes another thing. I personally would say that if they're going to be working in that area, there's any concern that we have them close it off completely. The people that it inconveniences are the employees that are coming there. I do not know if all these businesses have rear entries that they use or if they have to come through that walkway for any purpose. You're now forcing them to go to one end or the other
Well, yeah, I
if they
mean,
don't have rear entries.
Yeah, if you're parking in the
So,
parking lot
it's
here.
a convenience thing is really
Right.
what you're
If you're
talking
parking in
about.
the parking lot here, where is the next? I mean, we can't see it. Would you have to go to either?
I think all of those businesses have rear entrances, and that's why they're parking in that city lot, because then they come in the
we go.
rear entrance.
All right, we're going to
Curtis,
wrap this up in
let me-
about 2 minutes here.
Sure, let me ask you one
let's-
thing, Curtis. The thing that I'm most concerned about, because I think we got two different issues. We got that breezeway. I'm not focused on that right now. I'm really focused on this blue rectangle. Curtis, there's a spot, there's a white truck parked behind 214. And then there's the sidewalk, and then there's 214.
It's not a sidewalk, it's an alley.
It's an alley.
Yeah, I mean, the alleyway, that walkway, whatever it is. I'm concerned about that area right there, because if you're hauling stuff from the current blue rectangle all the way to 214, you're walking across that alleyway anyway, are you not? You're walking right past that white vehicle,
You're going to anyhow.
and you're going there anyway, am I right?
Yeah.
All right, which means if people are hauling back and forth, I assume more than one time a day, more than 5 times a day, more than 20 times a day.
Yep.
I'm focused on that alleyway between that white vehicle and 214. That means there's all sorts of stuff going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
I agree.
And that concerns me, and that leads me to believe the blue rectangle should be as close to that area because, and then you can cordon off whatever you need all within that. So with all due respect to our public services, gentlemen, I appreciate that. I'm still trying to figure out why we can't just move that blue rectangle as close as possible, and then that entire zone can be cordoned off, but
But
That
the
is-
alley is not going to be blocked off, correct?
That's correct.
He's going to walk across it either way.
Yeah, but close,
closer,
closer.
with
Yeah,
less
I'd like to-
opportunity
Hard to
for.
tell because of the image.
Councilwoman Hardman.
Okay,
Councilwoman
thank you.
Hardman, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Okay,
Considered it.
yeah, well, first of all, I want to say, I do think that a lot of work goes into these subcommittees, and you guys are looking at things in much more detail and depth. So I do appreciate McKinney's kind of a recap of where we're at. But I do have to say, I really appreciate Curtis Mayfield being here tonight to explain, can we be a little flexible and can we evolve? And can we create a situation, obviously, the executive director of the Valley Junction, okay, that works with a lot of the folks there, is supportive of this being a temporary solution and has his pulse on the businesses more so than I do, okay, and I'm on their board. And so I'd like to see if we can come up with ways in which we create safety and protections, but flexibility and allowing this project that we encouraged, okay, we encouraged it, okay, to do this. So I'm in support of trying to help Mr. Curtis Mayfield in ways that we can, because I think there's always 2 to 3 ways that you can solve a problem.
All right. Thank you, Councilwoman. Are there any other comments, questions, discussion? I won't believe it if there are, but I think we beat this one to death.
Move for the
Before I
question.
ask if Councilman Trevelyan wants to pull his second and Councilman McKinney wants to pull his motion.
I do not.
Entertain. Okay, he does not. So therefore, what we're voting on now is
We're down.
whether or not we're going to go with the city council subcommittee recommendation, which is on the screen right now, a little bit further away. With that, I would ask you to please vote.
Two yes, 3 no. Motion fails.
Okay, then I would entertain another motion.
Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion
Okay?
to move that blue box
Yep.
as
Let's
far to
pull it
the
up on
east
the
as they
screen.
can, up next to the alleyway, like one of the considerations that I think the subcommittee made.
All right, let's get it drawn up so we know exactly what spots.
What was the vote?
3-2, it went down 3-2.
Oh, Kevin and.
Somebody
Probably
that,
Kevin.
somebody had that
Okay,
picture up
can
earlier.
we get, can we?
Okay,
I
there
think
it
we all
is.
know.
There it is.
Yeah,
There.
just move
All right,
to the right.
it's right there.
That's it.
All right.
I will second the motion to move
Okay.
that blue rectangle to the east just a wee bit. I think that's official terminology.
Where do you want it, Curtis?
It's unbelievable.
As close as we can get it.
Okay.
Close as we can get it.
All right, so the motion is to allow it in this area here that you see on the screen. Does somebody want to make that motion?
He moved it.
I already
Oh,
moved
sorry.
it. Greg seconded.
Councilman
Second
Lutz
it.
made it. Councilwoman Hartman seconded. Is there any discussion? Gosh, I hope not. All right. Please vote.
Nothing's ever easy, is it?
Man,
Moving a blue box, I tell you.
this is the sexy stuff that we deal with on the council.
All day, every day.
All right.
Mr. Mayor.
4 yes, 1 no.
All right.
Okay, we're good.
Thank you,
Of course, Trevilian's the no.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
What the hell is that supposed to mean?
Come on.
Why am I going to support something that isn't for sport?
No,
Thanks for doing the work here, and you don't even live
I
here and we
agree.
listen to you.
I agree.
Okay,
I appreciated it.
All right.
I just want to say, I really thank folks for this discussion, because really, honestly, we can come to an initial conclusion, but it does take leadership to look at other things and to evaluate different things and be okay with evolving. So I just want to say thank you. I think this is Curtis's first time speaking to this council. I know it's not easy, but I appreciate, this is what being a voice for all the people and having people come to the dais is all about. So thank you so much.
Can I get a copy of where we're supposed
We will have it. We got your address. We'll mail it
Go
to you.
ahead, Gertline. Okay, yeah,
We'll
you'll
get
get
that.
it.
We'll have
You'll
staff
get
get
it.
that to you. Thank you so much, Curtis. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on. Item 7E. We've got approval of preliminary design, Ashworth Road, 19th Street to 23rd Street. I'm not going to ask for a motion or a second here, but rather I'm going to have engineering start us off by giving us a brief presentation on what we are looking at considering tonight. I think there's about, 7 different options here. Don't quote me on the 7, but
If you share your screen
only
from
5.
here.
5, okay.
Here, Brian, I don't think you do.
Oh, you gotta share the screen.
It will be.
Thank you.
I just-
Let's get this out of the way. Brian Hemesat, city engineer. Happy New Year, everyone. Good to see you
Happy
all.
New Year.
There you go.
Thank you. All right. So Nate Hardesty from Shive Hattery and Eric Peterson from Engineering Services are both here helping me out with this presentation. Go on the next slide for me here. So we're going to talk about 3 quick things. And the first is, what were the results of the public information meeting that we had on Ashworth Road on December 5th? And I'm going to go through what we discussed there and what the results were. And then we're going to talk about the 2 of the main items we're going to be voting on tonight. Number 1 is the lane widths of Ashworth between 19th and 23rd. And the other is, are we going to shift lanes between 19th and 23rd? So at the public meeting, we went about it a little differently. So we looked at the parking as one of those items. So the parking is basically from the back of curb to the sidewalk. And we looked at both a 6-foot parking and a 9.5-foot parking. And then we also looked at shifting lanes to try to move that right-of-way more into the center of the right-of-way. So basically, you can see on your screen here that the straight lanes have an increased impact to the turn lane properties, increased impact to users and number of properties as you go towards the lane shift. And then similar on the 9.5 and 6-foot parking. So after we discussed this with everyone, everybody got a chance we did ranked choice voting. Everybody put their top to bottom items or options on that. And we basically tallied up the votes, and this is the information that we came up with. So the straight lanes were, and I think we go to the next slide. So the straight lanes were basically preferred by 80% of the folks. And there was 20 properties there. I believe there's 29 total affected properties. 20 of them showed up, 20 of them voted. And then there was comments that were given on by 9 of the properties, 5 in support of less right-of-way, 4 in support of the straight lanes or the 9.5-foot parking. Okay, and then, so basically 55% of the folks that voted preferred the wider parking area, and then 45% preferred the narrower parking area. So in talking to some of the property owners that live directly adjacent to these turn lanes, we discussed this with them after the fact, since it was kind of 50-50, and discussed, is there a happy medium that we can go with so that we can at least go into the council meeting with that decided. And my understanding is the property owners decided that as well as us, that a 7.5-foot parking would be okay. And that's, so all of the options we're going to be looking at today have a 7.5-foot parking. So basically and then after that meeting, we went to the Public Services Council Committee, and we discussed this issue at length. And we were given some, basically some direction to go out and come up with some different options. Then we subsequently met with some of the property owners along where the turn lanes are and tried to talk through some different options. We actually came up with, as you can see on this matrix, under where it says moderate lane shift and then 10-foot lanes plus 1, there's a couple of different options, and there was one that we kind of worked together on and came up with. So that's why there's an additional option in there. We talked that through with those folks when we met with them on a Sunday, one Sunday afternoon. So we can go on to the next one here. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is lane shifting, and I'll try to go through this fairly quickly so that we don't bore you to death. Basically, what this is a diagram of is if we didn't put any turn lanes in at all on Ashworth Road between 22nd and 19th Street. Now, I will caution you, this is a very schematic diagram. There's nothing here to scale, so don't say it's like this is whacked out or anything. So this is what it would look like with no turn lanes. And now we go on. We have a lot of turning movements. So we are trying to separate out those turning movements into those 2 right turn lanes to try to allow the through traffic to make it through more quickly. We've had this discussion many times in many meetings, and this is the configuration we came up with. So
Brian, because just really quickly, because without the right-hand turn lanes, you're worried someone's going to get rear-ended as they're trying to make a right turn and the through traffic's trying to go. You're trying to get them out of the.
That's correct. And there's enough traffic on Ashworth between 19th and 22nd.
That these are warranted.
That we need these turn lanes to get people out of the way to.
All right. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're fine. That's a good question. So essentially what this does is it creates a fairly significant right-of-way acquisition area, which is shown in that light blue. So the folks on the north side, on the west end of the project, and the folks on the south side, on the east end of the project, are fairly heavily impacted the way it is. So what we looked at, is there a way we can do more evenly distribute that right-of-way somehow? So we looked at shifting lanes. Now, this is something that is allowable in our SUDAS design standards. And Nate just went to that next slide. So basically what we're doing is we're shifting the intersection of 19th Street to the north and the intersection of 22nd Street to the south. And basically what that does is it more evenly distributes the right-of-way. Now this shows that right-of-way is needed from every property there. We have different varying lane shifts that have different degrees of right-of-way acquisition. Some of them are all the way across on both sides, and some of them are just lesser on the turn lane areas. So if you show the next slide, which I believe Yeah, this just basically shows the lane shifts of what the through movements have to go through. Of course, again, exaggerated, so this is just because if you look at the actual plan set, it's hard to see these lane shifts. I'm going to the next one. So what we're gonna need to do project-wide to get these lane shifts in is we're gonna actually have to shift traffic 3 times through this entire project. So shift down to, or however many feet, depending on which type of lane shift you're doing, at 22nd, shift up through that area between 22nd and 19th, and then shift back, which will actually extend the project out a little farther than what we were originally expecting if we do lane shifts, to get that lane shift to happen.
So Brian, how many cars, I know I asked this at Public Works, but just for everybody's information, how many cars will these turn lanes stack? So if there's a red light, how many cars can you stack in these turn lanes?
About
Go ahead.
15,
15 cars.
approximately. They're 350 feet long.
Thanks, Nate. Okay, we'll go on to the next slide. So we're gonna, so these lane shifts, I just wanna make sure that you understand when you have a lane shift, it's not something a driver is expecting. And when you have nighttime conditions, which happen every day, raining conditions that happen quite often in our city, you combine those two, it makes it difficult to see the lane lines, which are really what you're gonna be using to get through these lane shifts. If you go on to the next one, obviously this is a very big storm. If you go to the next one, this is actually just, I checked on this day, it's 3/10 of an inch of snow. So it's a very small amount of snow. And as you can see, you can't see any of the lane lines on Ashworth, or this is at the intersection of 19th and Ashworth. So you can't see it. And I'm sure that Gary was diligently getting his folks out there to apply salt and plow this area. But there's gonna be times when during the course of a storm that it's gonna be very difficult to see these lines. And my point is, when you have lane shifting and you can't see the lines, that's not a real good situation for drivers.
Brian, do we have lane shifting on any other streets in West Des Moines?
And we have lane shifting all over town, yes. Yep.
And do we have a lot of crashes because of that?
They're
Maybe
lane
that's a
shifts
question for
they're
Chief
lane
Scott.
shifts for different reasons, though. This is the only lane shift that we have for a non-engineering reason. So when somebody's driving down this particular area, they're expecting to drive through it straight. We're not developing any turn lanes. We're not doing anything like that. We're just shifting for the sake of shifting in this particular situation.
Understand that. I came through 19th and Vine just last night, and that shifts down there. So, okay.
Real stupid, quick little question. If we shift a lane like this, would we have to, or would it warrant a sign that says lane shift or some?
I don't know that answer.
Okay. I mean, that would be helpful, but if it's not, I know if it's not warranted by the MUTCD, then can't do it. So.
Brian, do you know how much ground my understanding is there's less ground that is required to be acquired by the city if a lane shift were to be adopted.
That's correct.
Do you know how much less ground would be necessary?
Yeah, it's a slide later, and actually.
Okay, I'm sorry. So you're getting to it.
Yeah.
All right, let's hold the questions now, let them go through, because we've got a lot to go through, and there's going to be public
Okay,
input and
so
everything
we're going to
else.
pop over to lane widths. So all I'm going to show you here is what the two different things we're voting on. Basically, it's either 10 or 11-foot traveled lanes with a 1-foot curb offset on both, and then either an 11-foot or 12-foot two-way left turn lane. So basically what that means is if you have the 10-foot lanes, it's going to be curb offset, 10-foot lane, 11-foot two-way left turn lane, 10-foot, 1-foot. If we go the other way, it'll be 1, 11, 12, 11, 1.
I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's 11, 11, 11, or 12, 12, 12. I mean, you can say the 10
That's
and
right.
1,
Yep.
then the middle lane is just the 11, and then the 10 and 1. You're going to have the something plus 1 on the outside, and
Yep.
Okay.
That's right.
Just want to make
Yep.
sure.
Okay, next slide. So then in the areas where we do have right turn lanes, they will be either 10 or 11-foot wide right turn lanes as well. So what I'm going to show you here is, according to SUDAS, the preferred lane widths are what's on the top of the screen here. 2-foot curb offset, you can see these, I don't have to read them to you. Acceptable is 1.5-foot curb offset, 11-foot lane width, and 12-foot two-way left turn lane. If you go to the next one, so that one is still on the top there, but what we're actually proposing on option C is actually a little bit less than that. And the reason that is because for that whole corridor of First to 50th, that is the width of the road out there today. So to minimize disruption to utilities, the storm sewer that might be directly under that already, keeping that distance from the sidewalk to the curb intact, that is why we're conceding a little bit on that curb offset from 1.5 to 1. And then the bottom one is another option that shows, the 1-foot, 10, 11, 10, and 1. That one does not meet the minimal accepted design standards according to SUDAS.
I'm sorry, could we just go, I'm not going to try to get ahead of you. Can you go back a slide?
Sure.
And one more? Okay, so acceptable, preferred is actually 43 feet?
Yes.
So with a 14-foot turn lane?
Yes.
And with a lane width of 12 feet plus 2.5 foot, so roughly a 14-foot total lane if you add the
That's right.
curb offset plus the lane.
Yep, 14.5.
So you went from 43 to 37, which you say is acceptable. And then if you go to the next slide.
Yeah, we actually cut 1/2 foot on each side so that we can maintain the same width that's out there today to minimize the disruptions to the utilities that are out there as much as possible.
But I have to ask it, does the 1 and 11, 1, 11, 12, 11, 1, does that still meet SUDAS standard, design guidelines?
Yep, the curb offset does not. But
Okay.
as the city engineer, I believe that curb offset in this particular case could be decreased by 1/2 foot because of the reasons that I spoke about earlier. There's still enough of an offset. Go ahead.
Brian, is it true that SUDAS is a guideline, not a law, correct?
Correct.
And so even though you believe that you can't deviate from SUDAS, the city council can deviate from SUDAS, correct?
City council can decide whatever they want.
And Greta, would that put us in a liability lawsuit if we deviated from SUDAS? Because I don't believe it would.
I think it would.
Can I ask Brian a couple questions?
Yeah.
It depends.
Hit your mic.
I just want to ask Brian a couple questions, because we do have statutory immunity under certain conditions for design and construction of roads. What kind of street is this classified as, Brian?
It's an arterial.
Okay. So for this arterial street, for this particular section of this arterial street, would going with the more narrow road, 10, I'm just going to call it 10 foot, but the narrow one, if we would do that, the 10 feet, would we be in accordance with a generally recognized engineering or safety standard criteria or design theory?
Not in this context, we would not be, no.
Okay.
Which one would not be?
She's,
10 and 1, she's talking about 10 and 1 would not.
yeah, the narrower lanes, so the bottom one, that would not be within the guidelines in this context, no.
Okay, so I understand that it's not within the guidelines, but is it within a generally recognized engineering?
No,
There's other engineering, AASHTO and others out there that says you can do 10 foot, even 10 foot without the 1 foot
well, that's
offset.
not necessarily true.
But what my question is does it fall within a generally recognized
Alright.
one, to your knowledge?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat?
I'm so sorry, yeah.
I'm getting,
So does doing them at 10 feet, does that fall within a generally recognized engineering or safety standard?
it does not.
Okay. And is this something, I know some things, reasonable people can disagree about. Would reasonable engineers disagree about whether that falls within a generally acceptable standard or
I would say if I polled engineers, city engineers around the state, I would say a vast majority of them would agree with the wider lanes or meeting the design standards of Iowa SUDAS.
And would you also say that they would agree with you that the more narrow lanes does not fall within a standard?
That's correct.
So under Iowa code, with design and construction immunity, as long as you're building it within the generally recognized engineering or safety standard, criteria, or design theory that's in existence at the time that you construct or reconstruct it, then we enjoy design immunity. If we are building something that does not fall within a generally accepted engineering or safety standard, then we do not enjoy that immunity. So that would be a question if we're ever in litigation.
Okay, so do we enjoy that immunity in the middle one there? 1 and 11 instead of 1.5 and 11?
I believe so, because our current roadways are built with 11-foot lanes on the outside with a 1-foot curb offset.
So we're already deviating from SUDAS.
In this particular case, we are deviating from SUDAS.
But going back to what Greta is talking about from a legal standpoint, we are within the recognized standards with this middle one.
Yes.
C options.
Okay.
How are we within the recognized guidelines if you just said the acceptable guidance is 1.5, but you're saying that 1 foot would be fine?
Well, there's.
I don't understand how you've got the differing.
Right. The jurisdictional engineer can always make an exception to that, and that is an exception that I believe is with my engineering experience and judgment is something that is not something that would be a liability to the city.
So you can make a judgment to deviate from the 1.5, but you can't go from the 10 to 11.
Correct.
Based on what?
Based on my engineering judgment and experience, Kevin.
That's important to me because we cannot put the city taxpayers into a liability situation if there were to be a crash and a lawsuit. And I think honestly, forget about all this mumbo jumbo. You have an attorney representing somebody that got into a car accident. They're going to go straight to it. And if we don't have what Greta's talking about, they're going to argue that and we're going to be in trouble.
Especially if it's been discussed. This very discussion would be played at a future,
Correct.
lawsuit, so, yeah.
Okay. All right, Brian, go ahead, Kevin, and then.
Are there any other cities around? I believe Grimes just built a new roadway, and don't they have, I guess, 10-foot lanes with a 1-foot curb offset?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about Grimes. I do know that I drive around and I've been taking note of a lot of areas around town. I mean, I drove down 128th Street in Urbandale. That has actually 14-foot wide outside lanes. And I mean, we don't need that. But what we have here is what we have here on that option C is perfectly acceptable for trucks, for transit, for the general public to be able to traverse through that area.
Okay, go ahead, Brian. Keep working through this and then.
Yeah, we're almost done. So I'm just going to quickly go through these different options. Basically, option 1C. So let me take you through the voting. So when we vote, we're going to be voting for, I believe the first one, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, is to talk about lane widths. And it'll be a motion for, I believe, the 11-foot plus 1-foot curb offset lane widths. And if that dies for lack of a second, or it gets voted down, then we would go and vote for the other. And that basically that's all the C options, I believe, as Councilman Lotz so kindly told us earlier. So all of the C options on here are the 11-foot lanes plus the 1-foot curb offset. And 1C is the straight lanes. So if you go on to the next one, next. So, and then option 2C is also 11-foot lane widths, but it has a 4-foot lane shift, which would actually save about, well, it would save 2 feet of right-of-way from the property owners in the turn lanes on both the north and the south. So this, going from 9.5 to 7.5 parking is 2 feet automatically from what we had originally done. And this one, 2C, would save an additional 2 feet. Go to the next one.
Go to 3C.
Yeah, go to 3C. So then 3C is a situation where we're asked to look at this is how can we basically center that entire roadway into the middle of the right-of-way? And that is what this is. So we're actually going to be affecting all of the properties along there with a smaller amount of right-of-way on both sides. All right, let's go to the D options. Okay, so 1D is basically 1C, but it has 10-foot lanes instead, 10-foot lanes, 11-foot center instead of an 11 and 12. So, and that does decrease the right-of-way acquisition on, go ahead.
Based on does that meet the guidelines?
No, no. So this, everything that I'm giving you that is that has a D or an E at the end of it are lane widths that are narrower than what the SUDAS allows.
So are the C options the only ones that meet the design guidelines under SUDAS and?
Yes.
Okay.
So then let's go on to 2D. Okay, so this is a 7-foot lane shift with 10-foot lanes. I don't know, is this the least amount of right-of-way or is the next one, the 2E?
This one, smallest overall.
Okay, so this is the smallest overall right-of-way acquisition with, and I probably need this to help me with this is 2D. So this will actually, let's see. So the acquisition width per lot would be about 4 feet total. So 11 to 4.
And what is the current acquisition right now? 12? 11?
Well, 1C is 9, but when we originally.
The original design
1A was 11.
Okay.
That was our original design.
Original design was 11?
Yes.
Okay. So if we take original design, we've got to take 11 feet from some of the property owners?
Correct. And then, and 2D would be 4.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay.
Go ahead, Brian.
Okay, so the next one would be 2E, and this is one that we discussed with the property owners and we came up with together, and this is a 5-foot lane shift, so it's exactly like 2D, but it also has the 10-foot lanes with a 1-foot curb offset. And the total right-of-way acquisition is a little bit larger, and it's a 5-foot total acquisition rather than the 4 from the one before. Okay, let's go to 3D. So this is the one again where we're shifting the right-of-way so both sides can have right-of-way acquisition essentially. And we have narrower lanes, so the right-of-way acquisition is slightly smaller on both sides, which on this one, it would be 2 feet of total acquisition from approximately from each side. But this is a situation where you have 11-foot lane shift. That's pretty significant lane shift. And that's really the end of my presentation. You can go on to the next. So this is basically the summary of the different options. And then I think we just have any questions, and I think you asked a lot of questions during that. If you have any
We did.
additional
We did.
questions.
I've got some additional ones real quick. I'll be quick. So not all of these meet the design guidelines. The only ones you're telling me that meet the design guidelines are the C options.
Correct.
1C, 2C, 3C.
Correct.
And then do the ones that involve the lane shifts, I mean, you've got a 7-foot lane shift, a 4-foot, I think the 7-foot, that one doesn't meet the design guidelines. But this one here, 2C, involves a 4-foot lane shift, right?
Correct.
I mean, a 7-foot sounds really a ton. 4 feet seems like a pretty big lane shift. Any idea what the experience of the driver is going to be on that and what they're going to be? I mean, what is the average driver? Right now, people, I don't care who you are, can come up to me and say, man, Ashworth is ridiculously narrow. I can't even, I'm so glad you guys are taking a look at this. That is the general comment of the majority of people that I talk to. What is the general feeling going to be of the driver that does a 4-foot lane shift? Forget the snow and all that stuff. Just, does this lane shift? Is it really going to be that big of a deal? Or
It's not going to be as significant as like those schematic drawings were showing. It'll be gradual. It'll be all within design standard. It's, I can't remember, I don't know, is it 30 to 1, 45 to 1?
30 to 1 taper rate.
I mean, people are going to say, my God, Ashworth Road is great, but what a weird lane shift. I
Yeah,
mean,
well,
just bizarre.
it does not meet driver expectation to drive through a lane shift in an area where you're not expecting a lane shift. And I would say that this would be one where you wouldn't be expecting that.
Which option is that?
I mean, that's 2C. And I'm not, look, none of us want to take any more property than we have to for this project, okay? That, we feel very strongly on that, and that is a big deal. But, at the same time, we go to do this project and we've got, 15,000 people just going, man, that is unbelievably awkward and weird. I don't know what the heck they were thinking of when they did that. I almost got in an accident. I wasn't paying attention. I mean, I'm just trying to figure what the driver is going to be thinking about.
You're not paying attention, you're going to get in a wreck if you're in a straight lane.
Regardless, I agree. And so what concerns do you have with the lane shift other than, the snow and not being able to see the lane shift? And
I would say that this is a lane shift for a non-engineering reason. It is to conserve right-of-way, and that's what the council asks us to look for, is to look for alternatives that we can.
it's kind of a forced.
Conserve right-of-way. So we do not have a situation in the city anywhere
where we do this.
We have done lane shifting for a non-engineering reason.
So what is an engineering lane shift? Is that when you have a road go from, 3 lane to 5 or
I'll use-
4? Or what? I mean,
Yeah, I'll use Ashworth as an example. If you're going east or westbound on Ashworth, where, and then you come into, say, Valley West Drive. Let's say you're going westbound on Ashworth and you're coming to Valley West Drive right by the fire station.
Okay.
The shifting is actually pretty significant there, but we built it all within design standards, but folks shift up to develop that center turn lane.
Okay.
And that's, and so we have lane.
So it goes from 4 to
across-
5, and
Yes,
that's.
it does, yep.
And what is that a 4-foot? I mean, give me an idea of what kind of a shift that is.
That's actually probably closer to an 11 or 12-foot lane shift.
My goodness.
And because we shifted everything to the north because we had 2 residences on the south and we had the city property and the Valley High School property on the north that were probably a little more willing to acquire property from. And
But that's
why
something
that
we
shift
had to
happened.
do. It's an engineering lane shift, something
Yes,
we
yep.
had to do. We couldn't.
Yep, absolutely. We had,
Okay.
yep.
Could you have taken land from a different side for that project?
Yes, we could have lessened the lane shift and had property acquired from all 4 corners. And in this case, we shifted it to the north because it was city and school property, a little bit bigger area.
Okay, two more questions I have, then Renee's got a question. I'll go to her, then we'll go to Kevin, real quick. So do you have any concerns at all with pedestrian safety with any of the designs that you've shared with us tonight?
With all of the straight line options, I don't have any concerns. You're
Okay.
going to have, actually, you're going to have a better crossing situation than you have out there today. If you look at how the ramps are configured, it doesn't meet a typical design standard of today for our ramps. We're actually going to pull those ramps farther away from the intersection and have it so that distance is shorter across the way versus what it is today, and it's closer to where like the radii is, and it's pulled away, and everybody crosses from the same spot both directions. So we're gonna make that better. But the lane shifting, this is just gut feel. I can't say that I have data one way or the other on this particular one, but I don't know that you want pedestrians crossing in an area where you're going to be shifting lanes back and forth for a through movement like that.
Yeah. Well, and technically, nobody should be crossing at some of these spots we're talking about probably anyway, but, okay. And then my last question, we'll go on to Councilwoman Hardman and then Councilman Trevilian and others. But, so what is the recommendation from engineers on this?
Engineering's recommendation would be 1C would be the top recommendation.
Okay, so 1C are the straight lanes, 11 on the left, 11 plus 1, center 12, 11 plus 1.
Right.
And then that recommendation, the original plans resulted in having to take 11 feet. What does this require?
This one would be 9.
9. So just 2 less, okay. All right, Councilwoman Hardman.
Yeah, sorry. Again, I'm not an engineer and I don't build roads, so I'm just trying to understand everything, Brian. Option 1C, I have a handout that says it's going to take 10,850 square foot right-of-way acquisition?
Total across the entire project, yes.
Okay, that affects 9 properties?
Yep.
Okay. All right, and then, okay, I just want to understand all of that, because I think that's why people are here.
Yeah, can you?
Option 2C, it's 8,400,
Right,
which affects the same 9 properties or different?
the same 9 properties.
Okay. And then, got another C. I think there's a lot of Cs going on here. 3C is 9,900 square foot right-of-way affecting 22 properties,
Yeah, it would be,
but lesser amounts, or what are you
that's
saying?
correct, yes, about 3.5 feet on each side on that one versus the 7 and the
Yeah,
9.
okay. And when you had public meetings with folks, what was their preference, or was there one that surfaced? I thought it was at a, what was?
When we did the voting, it was 80% was the straight lanes.
Oh, the straight lines?
The straight lanes, yep.
And there was an argument, I think, that was made because people were voting on options that maybe didn't affect them. Is that what we're hearing? Or what you heard?
That is, yes, but I mean,
Okay,
we wanted people's input on which one they preferred. So we
Okay.
asked what
Right,
that input
right.
was.
okay, so the shifting then, I'm just trying to understand the shifting, okay? The shifting is an option because it takes less right-of-way, or in a perfect world, you would like it to be straight, but the shifting allows for less right-of-way. Is that,
That's
I don't want to
correct.
put any words in anybody's mouth.
Yep, that's correct. You're all right.
So that's why shifting is even an option. Do you like shifting? Do you feel that's a good road
I wouldn't,
engineering?
no, I would not recommend lane shifting. That's why I'm recommending 1C.
Okay, but it does meet
It does meet the design standards.
design
yes,
standards.
yes.
Right, okay,
But
so
good-
it does.
Good engineering,
Just- That's
right,
important for me to know.
right. And good engineering design practice would be to build straight lanes.
But you could live with shifting because it does meet the guidelines.
It does meet the guidelines.
And that would be 2C.
And if that's something that the
I'm
city
ju-
council chose,
Okay.
we would build that.
Okay, that would be 2C. And 3C, or which, if they're
3C,
shifting, they're shifting in 3C as well, right?
But it's significant shifting.
Okay.
And then you're also affecting, you're affecting every
More.
property, almost every property owner along that corridor.
Okay, I see. Because it affects 22 properties versus 9.
Correct.
And we're talking
Okay, I
shifting
understand.
was 4 feet in 2C, and in 3C is what? That's
11.
11.
11.
Which we have, but that's only when we have to have it
Yeah, I
because of
understand.
engineering
No, I got
development of a
that.
turn
I
lane.
get that. Okay. That helps me kind of understand a little bit of the perspective, so
All right,
we're going to hear from.
Councilman Trevilian.
All right, Brian, you used the example of Ashworth and Valley West Drive, so let's go back to that.
Okay.
You said that it shifts, I believe you said 11 feet, and we did that because we were going to take property from basically government entities, not private property owners, correct?
And we, yes, and we
And
had to
so we
develop a.
could have made it maybe not straight lanes, but straighter lanes if we had taken property from those residents on the south side, correct?
There'd still be a lane shift, but yes,
But not as drastic.
correct.
So it's okay to do it in that case, but you're not recommending it now. And to me, it's the same situation.
It's not
We're
the same
trying. We're
situation.
trying to reduce the property we're taking from private individuals. And that's exactly what we did at Ashworth and Valley West.
But
We shifted everything to the north with major lane shifts, as you said, 11 foot is what you thought we had, so that we didn't impact the property owners on the south. Now you're saying that you wouldn't recommend that. You want to keep straight lanes so that, and then basically not considering that we're taking major property from individual property owners. I don't understand how, because one was an engineering design and this isn't. The engineering design is when you drop the plans, that's the engineering design.
But, yeah, go ahead.
Nate Hardesty, Chef Hattery. The big difference between like Valley West and what we're talking about here at 19th Street, at Valley West Drive, there's a net safety benefit with that lane shift because it allows the addition of a turn lane. Without that lane shift, we kept those through there straight, you wouldn't have the left turn lane. So as a trade-off, to get that left turn lane in, we had to shift the lanes to do something. Does that make sense?
But we could have taken property from the south. We opted not to, or at that time, the council and city staff opted not to, so we didn't impact the individual private property owners. That's what I'm not understanding, is why was it okay then and it's not now?
But this is going from 4 to 5, where you're talking is going from 4 to 5.
Correct. We're adding a
Right?
lane.
We're
4 to
here,
5.
it's 3 to 3.
And at Valley West Drive, the lane shift happens on all the westbound. The eastbound doesn't have lane shifts. So we made the westbound traffic have a larger lane shift than the east to get a net safety benefit of the left turn lane. One more thing I might add before I turn it back over to Brian. When we convert the whole corridor to a 3-lane roadway section, those left turn lanes, like at 8th or Valley West Drive, those are part of the 2-way left turn lane and then become the left turn lane at the intersection. So we're actually taking a lot of that lane shifting back out. You can see that if you go to 8th Street, where it's been restriped between 1st and 19th, if that makes sense.
But you are adding a turn lane here. So Valley West, you said for adding a turn lane, and we're adding a turn lane here too.
No, we're adding a right turn lane here, which is different than adding something into the middle and having to move the lanes out to shift them. If you keep the lanes straight and then you develop a right turn lane, all the through movements stay straight.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I, Mayor, okay. Brian, I'm going to try to narrow this down a bit, at least for myself.
Sure.
We've got, as I look at this, your opinion and Greta's questions about our liability, you've got a 12-foot lane. And if I look at the 12-foot lane options, I got 1C that you've talked about, 2C that you've talked about, and 3C that you've talked about. Of those options, the one that takes the least amount of land is option 2C.
That's right.
The one with
total right-of-way,
with the
correct.
small, you have a 0-lane shift that takes 10,850 feet. You've got the 4 shift option, which is 8,400, and then the 11-foot option, which is 9,900. So one might initially believe that, oh, okay, 0, you take the most, 4, you take a little less, 11, you take significantly less, but actually, when you go to the 11, you start taking more ground.
Then, yes, then the.
Yeah,
the
collectively.
2C
So 2C would be the option that gives you the 12-foot lanes that meet the standards that are going to, will continue to have the immunity that Greta had talked about. The lane shift, which will significantly reduce the amount of land taken relative to the 10th option 1C, and would be not as great of a lane shift as the 11 feet. So anyway, I'm understanding all of these numbers correctly? Okay.
And if you ask me if I had to pick, take 1C out of it, if I had to pick between 2C and 3C, 2C would be the one that I would choose if 1C was out of it.
That's all I had, Mayor.
Okay, any further
I
dis-
just want to make sure, but it would affect.
Hit your
21
mic, hit your mic.
properties. It would affect 21 properties instead of 9, but lesser right-of-way for individual properties? Because 1C affects 9 properties.
Right.
2C affects 21 properties?
Nope, 2C affects 9 properties.
Oh,
as
I'm
well.
sorry. I'm seeing that 21 properties. What is it parking nearer than existing? I don't understand.
Basically, it's not acquiring more right-of-way. It's just that the parking would normally be like, I think,
Oh,
9.5
okay.
feet.
Okay.
And we would just narrow up the right-of-way
Oh, I
a little
see,
bit.
I see.
That's how it would affect those other property
Okay,
owners.
okay, all right. So 9 and 9,
which
1C and
which
2C.
which a bunch of people did not want when you voted.
Right.
But in order, that's where these trade-offs are coming in. When you're talking about taking less land, there are trade-offs. This is one of the trade-offs.
Right.
The 9 properties that it affects 1C, is it the same 9 properties in 2C?
Yes.
Okay.
Councilman Lotz, you had questions.
Yeah. So first thing I want to thank Brian and staff and Shive Hattery and especially Shane out in the crowd. I mean, you guys have been working on this for a long, long time, and you've put together, well, looking at this, 12 different options, right? Well, I've been always trying to balance this thing. So there's a couple things at play here. Number one is we got to meet certain stop, because we get $4 or $5 million for doing this from the feds, I believe. And if we don't meet certain guidelines, then that money goes out the road. But so we have to get that money from the feds. Second thing I'm thinking about is how do you balance public safety of the road with what is the minimal impact to these homeowners? And that is the thing that I'm trying to balance. And between what I'm hearing here on the dais and talking to Shane and other folks, like, I believe 2C is the best option. And I was actually really glad to hear you say that's like your second choice. I'm ready to make a motion, and I will make a motion right now to adopt 2C and just skip the entire 3-section voting process. So
No,
whether you guys want to continue
yeah,
that or not, but
I get that, but I want to hear from everybody here. I think we got to hear from everybody here, and then maybe we'll look at that. And I think Shane McClinton has, and he's going to be the first public speaker up, wants us to consider something in the way of voting, I guess.
and that's fine. I still made my motion. So
Yeah.
if somebody wants to second it later, my motion is just go with 2C. And if somebody wants to second it, great. If not, that's fine.
Okay, all right. I'll ask for a second later.
Anything else from me?
No, just stay, well, I'm sorry,
I'll stay up
sorry,
front.
Councilman Hudson,
Oh, sorry.
Councilman Hudson, sorry, Greg.
Can you turn to one of the, I'll just turn to 2C just for the heck of it. I brought this up about a year and a half ago, and it just kind of came across my mind. And I'm looking at 23rd Street. And I had asked you probably a year and a half ago, how can we maintain that left-hand turn lane? Because I'm thinking of the Fair Meadows folks and the folks in that neighborhood. And this seems like trouble when it comes to access to Fair Meadows. Could you speak to that, please?
Sure. So the reason that what we call a pork chop island is there is to direct people to only be able to turn right out of it or turn right into it, so that nobody will be able to make a left turn northbound to westbound or westbound to southbound. And that's, the reason is because of the stacking of the traffic at 22nd Street. So I wanted to get that out there so everybody understands. That is our recommendation to do that. And there's other routes to get to Fair Meadows School. We don't have to do that now, but if we build this, if we have issues, one of the things that I will caution you of is we could be coming back to build that later. So if we do have issues, but from what I'm being told by my experts is we will have issues. So this now would be the time to get it done. But that, and that's not something that we need to bog down this conversation with. And I'm not saying you're bogging anything down.
No, and I didn't want this to be a 10-minute thing,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to let you know it's kind of on my mind.
Yeah.
And it's trouble no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
For convenience, it's trouble maybe for safety, and it's a whole
It'll shift traffic.
it's a whole thing. But I just wanted to keep that on your mind because it's on my mind, and that was my one question.
And I hear what you're saying too, Greg, but imagine, look at 23rd Street there. Imagine heading north and taking, Greg, imagine heading north on 23rd here, south of Ashworth, and then taking a left and right real quick to get back on the 23rd. I mean, and people are going to do it. And matter of fact, I think people would try to take almost like a diagonal route there, which I think could be problematic. I mean,
Who knows what'll happen, but
I
it's
don't know.
just-
I
it's
hear what
just
you're
on my mind.
saying, but
That's all.
convenience, it sucks. Safety, it's good. But I'm sure we're going to hear from people if we do this.
We will.
Yeah. All right, Brian, Nate, stay close by, and Eric, keep hanging out. All right, Shane, you're going to be our first public speaker, and then we'll just line them up after that. Do me a favor, if you want to speak, why don't you line up over here, and we'll take it in order of how you're lined up here, standing on this side of the room, so we know exactly who all wants to speak, how many people want to speak.
I'll get a full screen. This will actually move you back and forth if you want to use it.
Okay, everyone's going to get 5 minutes here, and I'm going to hold everybody to the 5 minutes so I'm fair. We've got a number of people that want to speak, so, all right. Shane, start off with your name and address, please, and then you're on.
Shane McClinton, 1910 Ashworth Road. Had a script, Mr. Mayor, here to stay on 5 minutes, but it's out the window now. So,
Okay,
Sorry.
all right.
Too much has transpired. But I do want to acknowledge all the work that everyone has put into this, including the engineers. So coming in here, again, commending the engineers, coming in here, we tried to create the tightest design possible. The mayor kind of advocated for that, and they did. They came up with 7 options, and the tightest, for sure, is 2E, okay? Now, that's the one that involves 11-foot lanes. So I want to jump to that just a little bit here, because it looks like we're kind of shutting them down pretty early. But just to acknowledge, 1C takes the most land, and we talked a little bit about, and I really appreciate, our legal counsel chiming in, but this generally recognized standard. So I've talked with some other engineers, respectfully, engineers that consult legally. They've indicated that they wouldn't use the local guidelines. They would use the national guidelines. So that's AASHTO. We kind of brought that up. That's ITE. And from my understanding is 11-foot lanes are within those guidelines. So I would like further clarification there as well. I've looked into Chapter 5M of SUDAS. And I know there's a table that shows that you can have 11-foot lanes and 0 curb offset in there. So to say that it doesn't fit within those is confusing to me, having exhaustively looked into this literature, talking with other engineers, even talking with the director at SUDAS, who said that Chapter 5M would apply in a situation like this. Okay, meaning perhaps we could, just to go back a slide, we could use 11-foot lanes, which is safer. When you look at the empirical evidence, okay, the narrow lanes save lives. They wouldn't label it that way if it wasn't safer. And they focused in on 11-foot lanes being safer than 12-foot lanes in that study. And if we think about it practically, I'm a very practical person too, how much space do we need, right? We've got 3 lanes coming through here. Cars are about 6 feet wide, light trucks are 7 feet wide, buses are about 8 feet wide. In an 11-foot lane, cars are going to have 5 feet of latitude. Trucks are going to have 4 feet of latitude. Buses are going to have 3 feet of latitude. And if they're going together in lanes, add that together. There's 4 feet from one car, another 4 to 5 feet in another car. There's tons of latitude built into the design, considering the 2-way left turn lane is going to be empty most of the time as well. Okay, so there's extra buffering in there as well. People in the 2-way left turn lane are going to be residents like ourselves. It only turns into properties. Cars and light trucks will be turned in there. It seems like there would be plenty of room, especially when studies show that narrower lanes reduce speed, reduce severity of traffic accidents. It also reduces the width that pedestrians have to cross, so it's safer for cars, trucks, buses, and pedestrians. And proof of case, in the last 2 out of the last 3 years, there have been no accidents on the road, even with 9-foot lanes, okay? So now I want to jump a little bit to, we've talked about lane shifts. I do want to kind of mention that lane shifts are also known to be a traffic calming strategy. Okay, so here's an engineering guideline that indicates that you should use a lane shift to keep traffic calm. And it's appropriate for arterials like Ashworth Road, roads that have 35-mile-an-hour speed limit, roads that are bus and transit routes. The other thing I think is worth mentioning, everyone here drove through a lane shift to get here. Okay, we're talking about, if you look at the top picture there, that's what we're talking about. You're following a curb and you're following a yellow line. That's what this is going to be. It's not like we're shifting from one lane to another. You're following a curb that directs you a little bit 4 feet to the left or a little bit 7 foot to the left. Okay? That's the shift we're talking about. And it saves so much land in this project that it seems like a no-brainer. Okay? But if you add the 11-foot Lane in there too, it adds so much savings overall. Okay, so when you vote, I really hope and pray that you do this in a way that objectively considers the best fit, considering all priorities, including taking the leased land, but also safety. I hope that a vote for 1C would essentially negate 2 years of our collaboration. We worked together to come up with these alternative options. 1C is the same plan that we started out with. And 1C really hasn't changed. The only thing that's changed is we as citizens gave up 2 more feet of our parking, which actually is to the detriment of the pedestrians walking along our road, which I want to be accountable for as well. Okay? So again, I pray and I hope you vote. I know you all have the best interests in mind. From my perspective, Michael will touch on this too. We've done some mathematical modeling as well. 2E, considering all of the options we've discussed, is the best fit, okay? And it shows that West Des Moines values collaboration, respects property rights, promotes safety of all users, cars, trucks, buses, and pedestrians, and it preserves our neighborhood. Okay, thank you.
Right at 5 minutes.
How'd I do?
Shane. Awesome. Hold on, stay up there a second, because I do have one question for you, and maybe others will as well, if I can stop my stupid timer from going off. So the only question I have for you, and I appreciate all the study. I mean, man, this guy has studied and studied and studied, and I appreciate it, all the time you put into this. 2E is your number 1 choice. What's your number 2?
Well, look at this. I got the Olympics up here.
All right.
And
that.
this is based
Okay.
on our modeling too. So E was the best fit, D was the second best fit. And Michael will go over this too. It considers how much property is taken. It considers all the factors you see there on the left column that I've got up there on the slide. Okay,
Okay,
When you
so
put all
you're-
this together and you put it into a decision modeling matrix, it spits out these answers. So 1, 2, and 3, as you can see there. 2E,
So you've got
2D,
E,
2C.
okay, 2E, 2D,
You see that?
2C, the bronze.
Circled.
Okay.
Or, sorry.
All right. Anybody else have questions for Shane?
Maybe I'll just, not really a question, Mayor, but I'll just say, Shane, thanks for all of your engagement. You have put a lot of time into this, as the mayor had said, and frankly, when we had the conversation, we've had a few, but the last conversation we had, I think it was maybe last Friday, whatever it was. When you put together the chart, the matrix, and helped me understand the amount of ground that was taken, that chart right there really helped me better appreciate some of the things. And Brian, that's not to take away any of the great work that you've put into this, and you've done a lot as well. But helping me visualize this in a different way, Shane really made an impact on me. So thanks for everything you've done.
I'd like to echo that as well. This project has engaged so many folks. Certainly, it's taken tons of time. But Shane, while we have you here at the dais, I just want to share what Matt just said, because if I may be very, very blunt, let's say no one spoke up in the neighborhood, then we just would have gone forward with the way that we were going to go forward and whatnot. And this has given us a chance to take a look. Again, kind of like what Matt said, this is nothing to take away from engineering at all, by any means. But the fact is, you brought a neighborhood together, and I know it's not you only, but I'm grateful for this, because you put a big sign in your yard, and it was 12 foot long, and people saw that sign, and that made a difference to get us to investigate it further. If you don't say anything, then we don't investigate that further. And this is going to sound like a really cheesy, trite social studies teacher thing to say, but if a group of people are not engaged in what the city's doing, then we don't know what the people are thinking. It's just that simple. And then we'll just continue to assume that things are fine, because if we don't hear from folks, we don't hear from folks. So I just want to say thank you. And my voice is going, so I will just stop talking. Thank you, Shane, for the time you put in. Appreciate it.
All right, anybody else for Shane? All right, thank you, Shane. MJ, come on up, give us your name and address for the record, please.
All right, MJ Hub, 413.
Okay, you got slides too.
You indeed.
Also, for the other folks sitting in the back, if you want to sit down for a second, because otherwise, if everybody goes 5 minutes, you'll be standing up for 10, 15 minutes. We know you want to. We know you want to share. So if you want to take a load off your feet, by all means, we won't move on without giving you a chance to chat.
All right, so bottom line up front, I support 11-foot lanes, what engineering is calling 10+1. I would also like you to consider doing tighter corner radiuses than what they have depicted in their drawings. We've already covered what SUDAS says, and that really, even the widest design, SUDAS doesn't really like. But the wonderful thing about, as Kevin mentioned, there are so many engineering standards to choose from, so we can throw SUDAS in the trash where it belongs. NACDO, the most pedestrian-friendly of them, actually prefers 11-foot lanes. They don't even mention curb offset from all of their pictures that they depict. They're measuring that lane width to the curb. ITE, they also say an 11-foot lane is okay, and they measure that to the curb. AASHTO, the big one, says 11 foot's okay. It prefers a curb offset, but says in low speed street conditions in urban areas, and my font is way too big, curbs can be placed at the edge of traveled way. In other words, you can measure that 11 feet to the curb when for low speed, Ashworth is a low speed road. It is urban. So it meets the criteria under AASHTO. So 3 out of the 4 specs that I looked at say it's fine. The only one that says it's not is the one we already don't obey. So turning radius, currently the corners are about 25-foot radius. That's a good place to stop. It doesn't need to get any wider. ITE and NACDO both say you can actually go smaller. The Federal Highway Administration says 25 feet ought to be enough for anybody, including in areas with substantial volumes of turning buses and trucks. So if you're concerned that that's not enough, one option is to push the stop lines back, which allows trucks to turn through what would normally be that turning lane. SUDAS says not to do it. Again, we don't obey SUDAS anyway. NACDO says do it. AASHTO says it's fine. ITE says it's fine. So again, 3 out of 4 say it's fine. The only one that says it's not is the one we don't obey. And now, some of the staff might point out that drivers are not great at stopping at stop lines, which is a fair criticism. But drivers are people. They will learn, right? You have to do the reverse of shame to get out of the way of a semi once or twice. You're probably going to start stopping at the stop line. And of course, we can do education and enforcement campaigns and put lights and stuff to make sure that people do that. So what that might look like, so to use one of the mock-ups that engineering did, if you push the turn lanes back, it looks like that, which frees up space so you take significantly less right-of-way out of the properties at those intersections. It also, that also makes it safer for pedestrians because the corners are tighter. And it's cheaper for the city as well as being less right-of-way that those property owners have to give up. So, in summary, the MPO, when they built their complete streets model legislation, they actually made recommendations, including narrower lanes and tighter turning radiuses. They published that in 2015. The Federal Highway Administration created a document about pedestrian safety. Their recommendations included narrower lanes, tighter turning radiuses. They published that in 2002. These are not new ideas. They are not groundbreaking. They are pretty old, in fact. So we can do this, and we should do 11-foot lanes, tighter corner radiuses. Yep, you do. And if anyone wants to check my facts, I have all the references in the slide. Thank you.
All right, thank you, MJ. Any questions for MJ before he sits back down? Okay, thank you, MJ. Appreciate it.
Thanks for all the research.
Okay, my name is Srijan Kareem. I live on 1225 28th Street. So first of all, I'm here not just to address the council, but also the folks who are here. As I've mentioned, I live on 28th Street, which is 30 foot wide, curb to curb, but is considered 28 feet wide because of the 1 foot offset on each side, making the lanes 15 or 14 feet wide, depending on how you measure it. It probably hits a home run on the SUDA standard. I have lived in my house for 4 years, and I have noticed that cars go much faster than the posted speed limit of 25 miles per hour. I reached out to the city asking them to collect some data regarding the vehicle speeds. Credits to them, they responded promptly, and per their data, the average speed of northbound vehicle on that road is 37 miles per hour, and the 85th percentile is 42 miles per hour. Keep in mind, the speed limit is 25. According to their data, 2,500 vehicles are going 10 miles per hour or more above the speed limit, and 500 vehicles are going 17 miles per hour or more above the speed limit every day. The reason why I mention this statistics is because what the design criteria of the proposing engineers lack is that drivers tend to drive on a road at a speed that they feel safe at. And one of those factors is road width, meaning wider road makes driver feel safe driving fast. And that is why freeway lanes are 12 feet wide. According to the Des Moines Area Metropolitan Planning Organization's Complete Street 2015 report, travel lanes, quote, travel lanes over 10 feet encourage cars to drive faster, end quote. If you think otherwise, go to 50th Street or 60th Street, where the lanes are 12 feet wide, and drive at the speed limit and see how many vehicles overtake you and how much faster they are. I'm also surprised that the engineers never mentioned that increasing lane width and wider turns means the distance pedestrians have to travel to cross the road increases, and crossing size and how safe a crossing is tend to follow inverse correlation. If you do not believe me, compare crossing 22nd Street and compare it to the thrill of crossing Jordan Creek Parkway. Bonus points if you got a stroller and a child with you while crossing. And that with the possibility of increased speed because of wider lanes can really exacerbate the situation. For example, according to the AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety's 2011 published data, if I were hit by a vehicle on my road at the speed limit, I would have 30% chance of severe injury and 15% chance of death, but that would be 80% chance of severe injury with 50% chance of death if I were hit at 42 miles per hour, which vehicles are going at on my road. I want to clarify that I'm not here to tell folks which design to choose. I'm here to tell everyone that my family and my neighbors on and around 28th Street have to live with the added risk because of the bad road design. I also want to say that the SUDA's design criteria that the city engineer adheres to is neither divine commandments nor laws of physics, but rather one of many design standards and guidelines that exist and are practiced in North America, as shown on the screen. There are street design standards that can reduce the risk exposure to all kinds of people who uses the road and those who lived around it. And 12 feet wide streets are not it. In my humble non-expert opinion, and per the US DOT Federal Highway Administration's guidelines for urban arterial road that refers to, quote, most commonly used national guidelines produced by the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, end quote, also known as the AASHTO Green Book, 11 feet wide or 10 feet lanes with 1 foot curb offset is adequate for arterial roads and can happen if the city is willing to do so. If we implemented that in most of the city, imagine the millions of dollars of taxpayer money we would save on construction and repaving over the long term. I hope whatever the decision the property owners make or the decision that is made on their behalf by the leadership that we will have to live with is not just easiest to pass through, but also safe for the community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, any questions before he goes and sits back down? All right, thank you so much. We've got our next speaker up here. If we could get your name and address for the record to start, and you'll have 5 minutes.
I'm John Osborne, 2201 Ashworth Road,
Okay,
West Des Moines,
go ahead, John.
on the northwest corner of 22nd and Ashworth. I'm concerned about safety, as you all are. I have credentials in safety, certified director of safety. I spent 23 years working for a insurance company as vice president of safety, specializing in truck insurance. The section of Ashworth we're talking is part of a truck route. My concern is with lane shifts. Lane shifts are inherently less safe than straight lanes. Also, the lane shifts involve reduction of the parking area, which puts traffic closer to pedestrians. 22nd Street is a school crossing zone. So I have concerns there. I think the council has beat this subject to death. Don't understand why. Some people are drawing it out. I'm in favor of 1A. I've previously voted at the meeting for 1A, straight lanes, keep the parking size the same way. Heaven knows the snow plows put enough of it up there. Unless they're gonna start coming around and cleaning my sidewalks, I don't want less of a parking area. Not normally a proponent for giving up right away. 1A is over 1,000 square feet additional. I've already taken some for traffic control boxes that prior owners gave up. But I'd be in favor of giving up, not giving up, but losing that right of way to go with straight lanes and a current parking size. That's all I have. Yes, sir.
Thank you, John. We got some questions. Go ahead, Councilwoman Hardman.
First of all, John, thank you for being here, as well as all the other speakers. So can you hear me, John? I want to thank you for being here.
Just barely.
Okay, I just want to thank you for being here and sharing your thought process as a person that's worked in safety for most of your life. So you do bring, as everyone else does, a high degree of credibility. If we chose 1A, does it affect your property as well?
Probably the second or third most, yes.
Okay, so you're saying here that you like straight line and 1A,
Yeah.
knowing that it affects your property too and your right of way. Is that correct?
Yes.
Wow. That says a lot. That says a lot.
Well,
That
if
says
you
a
look-
lot.
If you look back at the meeting that voted on it, the majority was in favor with straight lanes.
And John, I've got to ask a follow-up question just for clarification. Okay, just for clarification, are you meaning 1A or 1C?
1A,
1A,
yes.
okay.
9.5 feet parking, straight
Okay,
lane,
it's not part of the packet. Okay,
no lane shifts.
gotcha. All right, any other questions
That
for
thing that
John?
you haven't brought up on those lane shifts, we get a 65-foot, 102-inch wide semi going through there, and he's probably not familiar with going down Ashworth Road. Are you going to fit the whole truck through the lane shift?
Yeah, so I'm assuming
1C
your,
has straight
one,
lanes.
yeah, 1C would probably be your second choice, I'm assuming then, which is
straight
on,
lanes.
1C is straight lanes. It's 11 plus 1.
We
with
only
the curb.
have one choice, 1A.
Okay, you have no second, no second. Okay, sounds good, John. All right, any other questions for John before he sits back down? All right, thank you so much, John. Appreciate you being here.
Oh, okay. When was that off the date?
Okay, next speaker.
Okay. How much right away was 1A?
My name is Michael Tolmatsky. I'm a resident of 1920 Ashworth Road. And first of all, I would like to apologize that I have a heavy accent. So, and the second is that I'm turning back to the people.
That's okay.
Sorry about that.
Could you, I'm sorry, did you give us your address for the record? I don't know if I,
1920
okay,
Ashworth Road.
okay, gotcha. Thank you.
So I just want to mention that first of all the options what was offered, I suppose, based on the conversation over 2 years, meeting some standard and design regulations, and all of them can be considered as a normal options for the project. And because of this amount of the projects and all the conversations what we had during the 2 years, I think that we can take a look onto the following table what is here presented. This is seven options on the left side, and you can see on the green background the main debatable points. The first one is land width, shift, land taken, and that is the major properties of each of the design option, let's say. Now, because they are to a certain degree contradict each other, this is a very well known trade-off task. What is the most optimal? And I just, because of my personal experience, suggesting to use some kind of mathematical method, what is compromising between these options. And this method, very well known from 19th century, and used by in civil engineering and in many other branches of industry, I don't know, of our life. Name it's Pareto compromise. Say us that we need to normalize each of these factors. And if you take a look, we over here showing that normalization factor, for example, for lane width, as recommended by our engineering department, says that the highest priority will have the 12 feet lanes. But 11 feet lanes on the scale from 0 to 1 will have the weight factor 0.9. You can see this on the screen. The second factor, what we have, it is lane shift factor. And this lane shift factor also we can normalize, but we normalized this a little bit differently. So it will be the biggest shift will have a weight factor 0, and the smallest shift, when it's no shift, this is straight line, this has highest priority. And the last, but for people who is living over there, I suppose not the least factor, is the land taking factor. And this land taking factor showing, this is also normalizations from 0 to 1. And you can see numbers. The biggest one, option 1C, has the weight 0. And the...
You got 1 minute left.
Pardon?
You got 1 minute left.
Yeah, okay, I'm finishing. I think that that is the minimum amount of the land taking is option 2D, has factor 1. So when we summarize all these weighted factors and we select the maximum, what is the closest to optimal solution, we are getting to the factor 2E. And if you take a look, on the right side, very right column, this is showing 100%. This is closest to optimal solution. And the second option, what is here, the balanced option, is 2D. And that is mostly it. And I would like to say thank you for your attention and say that over there are no my preferable option at all. So my preferable option is straight line, like it is, no turn lines, and make the wider road, so 2 feet from each side, and it will be straight and simple. So, and I think that it is completely, okay, I don't want to divert from the main topic, and I would like to say this is out of these two options, there are only the strict common sense options, and everything else is arbitrary. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Any questions? All right. Thank you so much, Michael. Appreciate
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe questions?
No questions at this point.
I'm Brad Morford, 1815 Ashworth, West Des Moines. Just a couple quick things on the design. If whatever goes through, I'd like to suggest the turn lane or whatever divider on 23rd Street coming up from Fair Meadows, if that could be a potential add-on later and not have that. I think so many people are going to want to turn left or they're going to look right and they're going to see 6 cars backed up to go down 22nd Street. I think that would be something to consider. The other thing, personally, I'm not scared of lane shifts because you're going to have a stoplight, 3 stoplights there to guide people to lane shifts as opposed to some of these roads where you just automatically have to think. And the other thing I think that a lot of people here might be frustrated with, this has been going on for well over a year, I think. People have been spending time, there's been email chains going on like crazy, and everybody is real excited after all these meetings to say, well, we talked about 10-foot lanes, we talked about 10-foot lanes. We spent time with the design firm designing options for 10-foot lanes. Then we start the meeting off here by throwing 10-foot lanes out. Why have we talked about that for the past year? I mean, I think it's really disingenuous to people to come, have a meeting, correspond, and talk about 10-foot lanes, then just have it thrown out after a year. It's very frustrating. I think a lot of people were hoping, praying that we're going to angle towards that. And then right off the bat, that's tossed out. Don't appreciate that. I think that was just unfair to everybody here, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I believe our last speaker for the night. Come up, give us your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Sarah Halterman. I'm at 904 17th Street, and I want to thank everyone for their time here. I'm really just here to support my neighbors, clearly a few streets over, not as directly impacted by this one on my own property. Again, I'm mainly concerned with the drastic property loss some of my neighbors are facing. I can't say as much quantitatively as so many people have before. It's more of just a few qualitative points I have that I wanted to draw to your attention, just comment on for the record. I bought my house a few years ago, and I think I would have probably really reconsidered that decision if I had known that this was on the docket. Seeing the loss of value that's going to happen at that corner, I worry about the long-term impacts that will have to those properties if those are to be pursued. I mean, I grew up on 23rd Street. That's where my parents lived. And originally, actually, my parents' first home was on 28th Street. So I'm very much in the neighborhood. I mean, ultimately, it comes down to just what's going to play out here is I question whether it's actually what we're getting as a solution to the real problem. it might just be a Band-Aid when the real issue is that after all the construction that happened on 8th Street, all of that traffic being diverted to 22nd Street has just pushed it beyond what it can handle at the moment. I'm sorry if these are things that have been discussed before. I know it wasn't involved in as many conversations, but I feel like, again, the traffic patterns here is 22nd Street just really isn't up to everything it's dealing with, which then creates all this turning traffic that is creating this large issue. Whereas especially when I use 8th Street these days, it's not nearly up to what it used to be facing. So that's all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So much. Okay. Is there anybody else in the chamber or online that would like to address the council on this? *6 to unmute yourself if you're online. Okay. Public comment period is closed. Discussion on the dais. Does anybody have any comments, questions, concerns they'd like to share at this point in time? And we do have a motion on the table as well, but no second yet. We will go back to the motion once the discussion is done.
If I could maybe just, got a lot of thoughts. I'll spare everybody my thoughts till maybe later. But Brian, you've heard a lot of commentary about the different standards, and I'm going to pull them up here just because I don't know what all of them are off the top of my head. But you've got standards under, of course, SUDAS, and then you've got AASHTO and ITE and NACTO and a lot of different things. Has anything here changed your opinion that you shared earlier relative to the lane width? And I ask because I think it's important we understand what our liability is or isn't.
Yep, I'm just gonna quickly say, no, nothing's changed.
Okay.
And there's a few things that without, again, sounding disingenuous, as Mr. Morford explained earlier, there's parts and pieces of design standards getting picked out of these design standards, essentially. And if you really read them thoroughly, and not to take anything away from all the work that everybody's done, but as engineers, we look through that, and there are stipulations on some of those things that change that. And that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. I'm not just coming up here and being like, everything they're saying is hogwash. It's not. So.
Yeah,
You're saying straight line.
No, Brian is, yeah. Brian, I guess I'm, as a former litigator, accustomed to the battle of experts, right? And, in this particular instance, I understand that people have put forward a lot of information, but we have only one engineer, as far as I know, in the room that's guiding us, and that's you. And so, from a layman's perspective, there are a lot of factors that I think probably go into this that, stand out to me that these are things you're considering. So tell me if I'm wrong here, but.
Well, and let me say one thing quick. We've got more than one engineer too, because we've got Nate here and we've got Eric, who's a traffic engineer sitting behind Brian.
Fair.
But anyway.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. Yes, thank you, Mayor. But a lot of things go into this. So you can look at any book. I can look at SUDAS, I can look at AASHTO and ANSTO and all the other documents. But you've got considerations that are local in nature. You got to understand whether we're talking about an arterial street or a non-arterial street. You got to understand what the vehicle counts are in a particular street and not in a just an average street. You've got to understand what the speed is, what the traffic flow is, maybe in this particular instance, the truck route, context. What would you come into on 18th Street and what are you exiting into onto 23rd or 24th Street in terms of the lane width, right? My understanding is we had a study, you presented, I was here in the council chambers for a study session or work session back in September, where you had shared the year-long pilot project. I'm so glad we did the pilot project. My understanding from that pilot project was when we went from the existing lane configuration and widened it, speed actually was reduced.
That's correct.
So that's an objective factor that we experienced on this very lane, on this very roadway when we widened it. We saw lower speed and we also saw lower accidents. I'm just trying to point out objective information. Am I wrong on any of this?
You're correct, and the lower speeds are even more important because the higher speeders, the 5 to 10 mile, the 10 to 15 mile an hour speeders came way down as well. Actually, that came down more than just the average speed.
So, I mean, listen, I appreciate what people have put forward. I'll probably not be, the most popular person in the room pointing some of these things out, but these are factors that I'm looking at saying, all right, these are just what a layman looks at. You are the city engineer in this. Based upon your background, training, and experience, your testimony, so to speak, today is that we would not enjoy immunity if we went down from the proposed, I'm just going to call it 12 feet, down to 11 feet. That would not be consistent with typical design standards as Greta outlined, and therefore we wouldn't have immunity. That's my understanding. If I'm wrong, I'd love to know it, but if that's the case, I would second Doug Lotz's motion. That's where I stand on it. 2C.
So yours was to basically skip the other voting type schematic that we were doing, and you just want to consider 2C.
Yep.
And
Brian, can you address that question, though?
So now we've got a motion and a second on the table, but yes, go ahead, discussion.
Yeah, the question is yes. Yeah, as the city engineer, that I agree.
And just to point out real quick, you've got the 85 percentile speeds before and after, and you've got Ashworth Road near 6th, before 40, after 38. Ashworth Road near 16th, before it was 42, now 85th percentile speed's 40. So going to what you said.
Thank you. I didn't know it was up.
Yep, they put it up. Okay. Councilman, you have more? All right. Councilman Hudson, were you going to ask some questions?
I have several things to share.
All right.
Could you go back to all the options and the square footage taken, please? There we go. Thank you. So 2C and 2C and 2E, I've been looking at those two quite a bit, and it looks like the difference between acquisition width is between 7 feet and 5 feet, correct? So therefore, the amount of the right-of-way acquisition is between 8,400 and 7,000 feet. So that means for every foot, in essence, every 12 inches more we take, that's roughly 1,200 square feet along 19th to 22nd Street, roughly. Would that be accurate?
That's accurate.
So that means for every 6 inches that we get, it's basically 600 square feet from property owners in West Des Moines, correct?
Yep.
So in that case, I do like the idea of 2C the best, but with a potential modification, like if the difference between 8,400 and 7,000 and the difference between 2E and 2C is a bit deal. And in the presentations we were given indicated that the statistical analysis says that 2E is a little bit better than 2C. And if there's folks in the area who like 2E better than 2C, I know there's a motion for 2C. I guess my question is, are there ways, since we're in a game of inches, we're talking about 24 inches, is there other ways to get an extra 6 inches, an extra 9 inches, an extra 12 inches with the understanding that these inches make a big difference? Because right now, in inch, I'm sure we could have done the math. I should have done the math, what actually 1 inch equals. But in essence, is there more inches to be had, Chief Engineer Hemesath?
It's going to be out of the parking. You could take it there, but then you've got, John that spoke about the parking that,
Yeah, there's people that want to keep the parking at 9.5. There's some people that say they want to save it and go to 6. And that's, again, why we went to that 7.5 as a compromise, because bringing 3 different, design criteria to the council is even more obscure to get your arms around.
How many is 2C bringing to us?
How many?
Different design criteria are 2C bringing to us?
Lane shifting and
They all have the same two.
lane shifting and the lane width. Those are the 2 on each one.
You just said this would bring 3 to it, though, right?
No, if we change the parking like the mayor discussed, that would bring a third into it.
Yeah, so right now we're doing 2.
Correct.
And this would add a third.
Yes. Changing the parking would add a third.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Well, exactly. So we're already doing 2, and then that would just add a third element.
Correct.
right? So my question is, are there other 6 inches to be had? Because we have this entire, so 7.5 feet parking, could be 7. I'm not saying I'm supportive of that, but that's 6 inches right there. Or if there's a 1 foot curb, it becomes a 9-inch curb on either side, that's 6 inches right there. I'm not saying I'm supporting it. There is a 11 foot plus 1 lane, that's 12 feet, so 11 foot and a half, that would be 6 inches. A middle lane that's 12 foot, 11 and a half inches, 11 and a half feet, excuse me, that would be 6 inches. There are 6 inches to be had here or there if the council chose,
That is correct.
but that is not what your recommendation would
My
be.
recommendation is still 1C.
Indeed. It would not be your second place recommendation.
I'm not sure what you're saying. The second
I said
place-
that wrong. So 2C was your second place recommendation.
I would say that would be the next best scenario, yes.
Yes. So that's what I was
But I
asking.
think what you were trying to do with some of those, pull 6 inches out, then that does not meet the design guidelines or give us immunity or whatever. I think that's the only other
And
problem.
that's what I'm asking. Are there inches to be had, which is ultimately the question. And you're indicating there are no inches to be had.
I mean, if there would be inches to be had, we would have knocked that out in our 3-hour plus time that we
Sure.
had when we went over it with the neighbors on Sunday.
So to that end, the way I view this is, Shane, you had a 12-foot sign in your neighborhood, and we saw it, and then 11 foot, and then 1C calls for 9 foot. Right now, we're down to 7 foot. I'm asking you if we could make it 6.5 foot, or 6 foot, or 5.5 foot. Those are the 6 inches drops that we're talking about. And you're suggesting there's really no inches to be had from your perspective.
Right.
Okay. That was my questions. Thank you.
Anybody else? Discussion?
I have 3 yes or no questions.
All right, Councilman Lotz.
Mr. Hemseth, one yes or no question. Is SUDAS the state of Iowa's adopted methodology?
Most cities in the state of Iowa have adopted that, yes.
Okay, 2 questions for Greta, our city attorney. The state has indemnified the city if we stay within certain SUDAS specifications. Do they also indemnify us from lawsuits if we follow a different standard?
And I think what you're talking about was our design and construction immunity.
Correct.
Okay, so we maintain that. It's not necessarily tied to SUDAS, but it is, as long as we're building in accordance with the generally recognized engineering or safety standard criteria or design theory, then we enjoy statutory immunity.
Okay. Could a plaintiff's attorney sue the city over an accident that happens if we followed a standard that is not SUDAS? Because if I look on the Iowa DOT website, it says SUDAS. Could somebody argue in state district court or what is I don't know what it is, but like I'm trying to think through the legal ramifications of this decision.
Sure, it is possible they could sue us, and that could be the argument. If I was defending a lawsuit, I'd always want to be able to present that we've met every standard that there is, that we've met the highest criteria that there is. The statute doesn't necessarily call for that out by name. It just says a generally recognized engineering or safety standard.
Thank you, Greta.
Okay, Councilman Trevilian, any questions, comments, concerns?
Greta, what you just said, is AASHTO and NACTO and ITE one of those recognized engineering criteria, guidelines that you would defend us with?
If I needed to, yes. Whether or not this meets those standards in this context, I don't know, and I would have to rely upon an engineer.
Brian, how is it that you, as the city engineer, can deviate from SUDAS that says we need the 12-foot lanes, or take that back, 11-foot lanes with a 1.5-foot offset? You're saying 11-foot lane with a 1-foot offset. How is it that you are able to choose what part of SUDAS gets followed and what doesn't?
Because as a jurisdictional engineer, I can make that decision.
So as a jurisdictional engineer, you could
but I'm
If
not.
you desired,
could.
whether you do or not, you could choose to do the 10-foot with a 1-foot offset, if you desired.
I could if I desired.
Okay. With that being said, I think I know where this vote's going, but with that being said, I am not going to support 2C. 2E, to me, is the one that makes the most sense. I believe it is safer with the narrower lanes. I think it does slow traffic down. I know that the other chart you put up, but that could be on the day that it happened, and another day it could be different. But given the fact that we've got lane shifts at Valley West Drive and Ashworth Road, based on the fact that we didn't want to take property from the people on the south, we took it from the government agencies on the north, and we put offsets there. I don't know that offsets are so wrong down here, and that also then minimizes the property that gets taken from individual property owners. 2E is the only one that is the fairest thing to do, and I don't believe that there's anybody sitting here, if you had a house on Ashworth Road, you wouldn't be in the exact same position that these people are in, and wanting to take the least amount of land possible.
Kevin, if you had to choose a second, what would you choose?
Like the other gentleman, I've got one choice, 2E.
Okay. Well, I think one thing is clear tonight, and that is that this council clearly cares about the people that it represents. We've had 8 Public Service Council Committee meetings where this issue was discussed at length as an agenda item. 5 public information meetings, I think I was at least 2 of those. 7 city council meeting agenda items, workshops, citizen forum discussions. A 9-month, I think, trial of striping the lanes and gathering data, and, some citizens are coming up here. Brad Morford, you said this is crazy that we've taken this long on this, and this is a lot. This is a lot of time that we've spent on this issue. You're talking about 6 inches. I mean, clearly this is a council that cares about the people it represents. And we represent the people that are in this room that live on Ashworth, but we also represent 72,000 other people in this city. And the decision that the council makes tonight, we try to come up with win-win solutions at every single turn, if possible. And I think we're pretty darn good at that. The decision made tonight is going to make some people happy and make some people sad. I mean, if 2C is chosen here, John's not going to be happy about that. It makes his parking shorter, and there's going to be possibly snow thrown up that he's going to have removed. Brian's choice as city engineer is 1C. He can live with 2C. It's within the design guidelines. We're not going to be able to make everyone happy tonight, but we've spent, I don't know how long on this, a couple years going through this. We've heard criticism that we need to, get the water main project done and all. Everything's being delayed. Everything's been delayed 2 years while we're trying to make this decision, trying to make the best decision that we possibly can, given the people that we care about. And we care about every single person out there, whether you're on Ashworth or you're way away from Ashworth. It affects everybody in the city. I know it affects the people in this room the greatest, but it affects everybody in the city. We have to look out for everybody. So I don't envy. This is where not having a vote is a positive as a mayor. But I would go with either 1C or 2C. I think 2C, I like that because it is within the design criteria. We're able to have the, immunity from liability. It stands up in a court of law. Somebody can sue us for anything they want to. It's a litigious society that we live in. But I think this stands up to that. I know Brian doesn't love it, but can live with it. I don't love the lane shift, but you know what? I don't really notice the lane shift that much at 35th and Ashworth. I mean, it's That's 11 feet. I don't notice that. It's not a huge deal. So 4 feet. This is 4 feet. So I think this is a pretty darn good compromise, in my opinion. But we will take the vote, and if this vote fails, then I will ask for another motion.
I would be remiss to ask. I was playing a game of inches earlier because every inch matters. I really, really believe that. And you're right, Mr. Mayor. I mean, we're up here talking about like 6 inches of right of way, but 6 inches of right of way is 350 square feet of potential property acquisition or whatever you want to call it. So I just wanted to ask Kevin or Doug, Renee, Matt, is anyone interested in seeing if we can shave off a few more inches to help these property owners? That's just my question. If there's no interest in it, Doug, what do you think?
How much longer are we going to debate Ashworth Road? Do we got to come back to another council meeting and then another one?
I think we owe people a decision tonight.
All right.
I think so too.
That's why I thought I might throw it up there.
I'll tell you what, nobody thinks of
these.
these things when they run for office. I mean, I knew I was going to encounter, but never to this kind of heart-wrenching kind of thing. These are the hardest
Difficult.
decisions ever.
It is.
Right? And I feel like 2C, that's why I made the motion early, balances all the best interests and why I asked my litigation questions, because we do get sued, right?
All right. Last thing I have to say it because, Brian, you and your team have done just amazing work. I mean, this has been an enormous undertaking. I have to say it because the amount of time that you spent on this, like the mayor was saying, has been just beyond what is required of you. So I just want to say thank you and recognize you publicly and just very exceptional work. Thank you very much.
Even off work time, personal
Yes.
time, meeting with individual homeowners to discuss. I mean, that's way above and beyond.
I'd share that. We talked on New Year's Eve day, I think, as I recall, and yesterday on a Sunday. And so, yes, thank you to you, your entire team, for what you've done. I think there's a lot more to the decision-making process than probably more than what everybody here shared. But I think one thing we didn't touch upon, I guess I'll share it now. I was going to share it at the end. And that is, as a part of eminent domain, we have to take the least amount of land necessary, right? And what I've heard today is what is necessary from a safety and liability standpoint is a 12-foot lane. And so, you know, from that eminent domain standard, what we're doing is if we move forward with 2C, we are taking the least amount necessary, 8,400, as opposed to the other numbers, while still maintaining our immunity, while ensuring that we're going to have a safe configuration. So it's not something I said earlier, but given others are making comments, I thought I'd better add it.
All right. Councilwoman Hardman, and then I believe we will vote.
Yeah, and the hour is long, and look at the citizens that have worked all day or did whatever they had to do and still here. And this is the kind of decision tonight that wishes you weren't sitting in this seat to make it, because no matter how you push this button, there are going to be some people that are not happy. And we just have to weigh everything. I will say, Brian, thank you for doing a good job, and I will say thank you to the citizens for doing what they need to do and voicing their opinions and their thoughts and coming to express that, whether we agree with them or not. So it takes a lot to do that. I have to weigh in all the factors, as my fellow council people have shared as well, is what is in the safety is number one, you know what I mean? Although we're doing this shift, the gentleman that said we shouldn't do shifts, I mean, my goodness, I wanted to change immediately about that because it set, my thought into a different kind of motion set. So this is difficult, but we have to make a decision. We cannot keep delaying this week after week after week after week. That's irresponsible. We have to make a decision, and I think we're used to making decisions where no matter how you push this button, someone's going to be happy and someone's going to be sad. So I'm going to vote what I think is in the best interest of safety.
All right. We will
say I
vote
don't,
and
Mr. Mayor, I don't think we've been deliberately delaying and stretching out this process. I think it's being thorough, and I think that's what we would like. But we have reached the end of the road. and, but I do appreciate the thoroughness, so.
All right, so in a moment here, we'll vote, and if it does not pass, I will ask for another motion. Okay. The vote is, Doug made the motion to vote for 2C, and it was seconded by Councilman McKinney.
Mr. Mayor, what would this do to the following votes?
I'm sorry?
For the following votes that would be coming on 7E for number 1 and number 2 for the, out of curiosity, because we were going to be voting on the lane width, and then we were going to vote, or does this
And we're
negate
not-
those votes
It
completely?
negates it. We're skipping that process. We're
just wanted
voting
to be
for
clear.
2C as is and not going through this methodical process. It's 2C. That's it.
That's cool, if we do that.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right, please vote.
Four yes, one no.
Okay. Moving on to item 8, receive, file, and/or refer. We have no items to receive, file, or refer. Item 9, other matters. Are there any other matters that any council would like to, councilperson would like to share for the good of the order at this time? Okay, hearing none, we are going to adjourn into our executive session, which we're going to have Greta upstairs in the boardroom. Okay, with that, we are adjourned.
Start signing tomorrow.